Public Service Commission. What we're going to do today is focus, we hope, on clarification questions to allow people to write the briefs they need to write and file by July 10th. So we're really going to try to avoid oral arguments. When you disagree with something, save that for your comments, please, because we've got a long day ahead of us, and you know that's the way details are, and we want to make sure it's not straightforward. The VDR approach has got definite layers to it. It's hopefully moving towards a commission implementation decision. The order said by later in the summer. So let's just get right into it. So not oral arguments, please. Let's stick to clarification and understanding what was filed. The utilities are going to end. Well, I'll get to that. The second thing is that I just want to level set with respect to a couple of the value stack elements, the DRV and LSRV. Really, the procedural history on that, or the stakeholder engagement on that, was that the utilities' position was, you know, our past marginal cost studies were developed for rate design issues within regulated rate cases and revenue allocation, and they really weren't designed with the granularity of setting the right price for distributed generation injections. We really should wait till we can work on that more appropriately before we set these types of values. And I'm just paraphrasing here. The commission basically said, we understand that. Yes, continue to work on that, but we think some number for DRV and LSRV is better than zero to start. So what you should do, as imperfect as it is to start with your existing marginal cost studies, as in perfect as they are for this purpose, and try to parse them, de-average them, however you want to phrase it, so that we get a DRV value that's applicable service territory wide, and if there are special areas where the value would be higher, then come up with proposed LSRV values for those special areas. And how they're applied was discussed in the order, but basically CDG members that get an MTC credit, we would assume the DRV is already in there, but they could get the LSRV. And the DRV, on the other hand, for those not getting MTC credits, would be applicable to those members. So what staff did was we took the utilities' individual marginal cost studies that they were required to file, their latest marginal cost studies, the latest piece of information we had, and we asked a consultant, E3, to look them over, recognize our time constraints, look for high-level obvious errors if they found any, and alert us to them, and also to compare them in a way that we've never compared utilities marginal distribution marginal cost studies before. And they did that, and they're here prepared to report to all of us what their findings are. I want to make sure people realize this is not a de facto staff position. We're just asking our analysts to, warts and all, give us their impression for everybody to take as input into, again, what, however, is an implementation phase, a recognition that these DRV and LSRVs are not going to be perfect from the get-go, but they're going to be, we think, better than zero and something we can build on in phase two. So that's all the opening remarks I wanted to give, and I'll now switch over to David Sandbank, who's going to give you an update on how the tranches are going and what NYSERDA is doing with their value stack calculator.
All right. Thank you, Warren. All right. So I'll be brief. Just so you know, the tranche numbers are on the New York Sun website. If you look on the New York Sun website under contractors, you'll see a VDER dropdown, and you'll see a tranche kind of block capacity update. It's updated every 15 days. As we get the results from the utility companies, we then update it. So right now, Con Ed is still in tranche 0/1 with about 1.8 megawatts of 137. NYSEG is deep into tranche 2 at about 79.7 megawatts of 84. And ONR is full through tranche 3. Central Hudson has just closed tranche 0/1 and is open for business in tranche 2. National Grid is 12.3 of 119 megawatts in tranche 0/1, so it's still in 0/1. And RG&E is also in 0/1. 16 of 28 megawatts of capacity are used up in tranche 1. Excuse me. So as again, these are always on the New York Sun website under the VDER page, and we'll update them twice a month. We're also in the process of working with a consultant and internally on creating a value stack calculator. This value stack calculator is going to be able to accommodate developers and possible customers to help them understand what the compensation level is going to be for the value stack, inclusive of all the different value stack components and location as well and utility. I think it's going to be a very handy tool. We're also going to make sure that the joint utilities agree on the methodology and the numbers within the value stack. However, not anything in the forecast world are looking forwards, just looking either today or backwards. So that should be available, I'm assuming. We're going to try to make that available when the order comes out or the implementation begins, one of the two. And we'll make that available on the New York Sun website and announce that as well. Thank you.
So there are going to be several PowerPoints. If you're watching by webcast, you should see them as we flip through them on your screen. You can also download them in the webcast link. If you're listening by phone, you can go to the webcast link on the notice that went out late last week, and you can download the PowerPoints there so you can follow along.
And just a couple other programming notes. One is that the agenda you're looking at, we didn't carve out special times for Q&A under each category, but we really do want to get to questions. So I've asked the presenters to speed it up to allow for question and answer under each. This is scheduled to go to 3, but we have the room till 4. So a little wiggle room, but not a lot. And under section 3, item C, I had E3 scheduled to speak to that, but Joint Utilities is going to speak to alternative 3. So with that, why don't we start off with Sneller Price of E3, or SNU, to
Thanks,
talk
Warren.
about their comparison of the marginal cost of distribution studies.
Thanks, Warren, and good morning, everyone. My name is Snula Price. I'm going to talk 2 sections today. The first section, as staff mentioned, is really about a assignment that they gave us to dig into the distribution marginal cost of service studies. So I'm going to do that. If I can advance this. Up. Sorry. This?
I'll advance. It's that bottom one. Right there. No.
Sorry. I thought I was paying attention. Page up. Got it. Okay, just a little bit of a procedural history so that everybody knows. I mean, obviously, we're focused on distribution, so that's one component of the value stack, and that the data that we were looking at really came from a set of marginal distribution studies that were really already on the shelf and used by Phase 1. So all the JU utilities at staff request just turned in their distribution cost of service studies that we're looking at. After I'm done, I think the JU utilities are going to talk about how they took this information and created their DRV, LSRV values from them, but this is sort of the raw information that goes into that process. Just a note for National Grid, they had one marginal distribution cost study that they had turned in, but then their rate case is going. They had an updated distribution study, so there's been sort of two in this time frame, and the numbers we're going to show is from the most recent one, although sort of the conclusions and methodology format of their studies is pretty similar. We really did two things, as Warren said. One was we were kind of going through and just looking for any kind of busts in the math or any kind of errors or anything like that. And the other thing that we did was to try to put these on an apples-to-apples type of comparison and create a comparison table so that everyone sort of had some confidence or some idea of what was in that underlying information that we're using to feed into the Phase 1 values. So before we get into the comparison table and the apples to apples, I just wanted to make a note, and I don't know how many of those folks in the room have spent a lot of time with marginal cost of service studies. But there are essentially a lot of data and adjustments, and it was pretty clear that from looking through all of these studies, really the utilities in New York have developed their own methods that have changed over time. That's not to say that they're wrong, and I think by and large they're all kind of industry standard marginal cost of service studies. But that they're just independent. They've just been doing these studies like independently, literally, and so in their rate case process. So they're not all they're not all the same methodology, and because they're not all the same methodology, we couldn't get perfectly apples to apples. So that's important to know when we look at the table of how we lined it all up. The other thing I wanted to say is that there's broadly kind of two kinds of marginal cost of distribution. It's important before we look at the table to kind of understand what that is. And this slide tries to bring that out. All of the utilities except for Central Hudson use what I would say is a fairly conventional industry standard approach to do marginal cost of distribution for their rate cases. And in that case, the numerator is their costs, their spending on distribution capital, and in the denominator, there's sort of two flavors of this. There's either the amount of distribution capacity that was added in some cases, and in other cases, it's the system territory-wide load growth. So the thing about the way that works is it's sort of a broad service territory average, dollars per kilowatt of distribution capacity. And then they make a number of adjustments and factors to try to translate, well, my transformers cost $1 million, but what does it ultimately end up costing ratepayers? And that factors in maintenance and operations and other components, financing, et cetera, insurance, et cetera. So that's sort of broadly the set of distribution marginal costs. Central Hudson, and they're service territory wide and they're sort of broad averages. You could think of it as a long-term average, or at least, I do. Central Hudson took a different approach, which is to actually go within their service territory and look at, what distribution capacity am I adding for which need, and how much load reduction would allow me to avoid having to build distribution in that area. So it's much more like the DSIP process here and a non-wires alternative process where they're kind of going granular. Then they averaged it up and across the service territory wide to get to the DRV. And so even though the units are the same, dollars per kW year, you have to understand they're just because the units are the same doesn't mean that they're really the same thing, okay? So, in an attempt to just follow direction and keep it short, here's a table, sort of the best table that we could come up with that put them all, the studies, on an apples-to-apples basis. And there's a column for each utility. Niagara Mohawk has 2, and I'll tell you why in a second. And these are the system-wide. So when you look at a distribution cost study, usually there's costs for different components as you go down through the system. So primary, secondary, substation. Depending on the utility, they break it out in different ways. This is the roll-up of all of that. So just to kind of get to the end number. And what you see at the top row, except for Central Hudson, because there's not really a way to get at this number for Central Hudson given their methodology, is just the dollars spent of capital per kilowatt. Okay, and then here, as you step down through the rows, there's adjustments. And what we try to do is line up what the adjustment factors were for each utility so we can compare, like, for example, how much is O&M across the utilities, how much is working capital, etc. So a few key things to note. And I'm going to let you look at this table on your own time. We're not going to go through every number. But I did make a slide that sort of summarizes what the sort of key differences are. So one key difference is that National Grid defines its distribution capacity, marginal distribution capacity cost, by customer class. Okay, so it's not a service territory-wide number or by service voltage. It's just by customer class, so residential, etc. And they have very different numbers. And when you're doing a GRC and a rate allocation, that can be perfectly fine because you're trying to create a rate for residential. So you've got your residential distribution marginal cost component. I think that is a little bit. We'll see kind of how that got reconciled with the creating a DRV for this. But that's definitely one difference, and it's difficult to compare because of that, the number from National Grid to the other utilities. The other thing that I wanted to point out is that NYSEG and Rochester add a reserve margin component to that top line distribution capital, which increases the number. They also have another adjustment towards the end of their low or zero growth areas, kicking out at the bottom. Again, that's not necessarily wrong. It's just different than what the other utilities have done. And digging into that a little bit, it seemed like what that might be is really just what share of the transformer capacity is loaded rather than a probabilistic kind of safety reliability reserve margin. But they could probably talk to that. The other thing that's pretty different is the O&M. And like a factor of 10x different across the row for how much of the value is O&M. And we didn't have the time or ability to kind of dig into that, sort of what is driving the difference, but I could speculate. One potential difference is just which work category that are included in the O&M, like which costs are really in there. I would be surprised if that is a 10x difference. Another difference is, trying to calculate marginal cost versus a marginal avoided cost. So if I change the load level, how much does my O&M change? And there's a lot of O&M that's fixed within fixed assets like transformers and wires and what have you. So it could be that those with the very low O&M numbers have an avoided O&M kind of method as opposed to just my total O&M budget, inspections of, working equipment, all that other stuff, just divided by my capacity. What else? I guess generally, we have to be a little bit pragmatic. This is phase one. Everybody's using the studies that they have that's filed in their rate case. So really what we want to look at is kind of the bottom line, I think, also. And I think that the general trend of the avoided marginal costs are followed what we would expect. Consolidated Edison was really quite, it was the highest. The upstate utilities were fairly comparable and quite a bit lower. Orange and Rockland was somewhere in between. So with that, I mean, basically the answer fell out, I think, probably like we expected it. And then, with depending on how we do the averaging across classes or how we deal with the customer class piece for National Grid, that I think that's probably the only other one that's National Grid and how we average the customer classes, and then the fact that I guess I should say one more thing, which is obviously the Central Hudson method is quite a bit different, and it results in a quite a bit lower marginal distribution capacity cost. In talking with them and looking through their filing, I think that they've got a number of areas where they're focusing their non-wires alternatives, and those are not in their sample because they've already under contract to solve those problems through distributed resources. And basically, they just, given their method, don't have a lot of other distribution capital projects on the board. So it makes sense to me that their number is low, but essentially what they've done is try to solve those problems another way through the DSIP process and non-wires alternative process. So that's what we found with them. And with that,
Thank you very much, Snow. I just want to point out one of the other requests we had for E3 was to go through it not with a fine-tooth comb as you would in a rate case, but as you compared them, if you found anything that was clearly erroneous, red flag it. We would go to the utilities. They would say, we mislabeled this. That's why you think, or, oh, that really is an error. They found a couple of things, and they largely were offsetting, which often happens. But we just did those, and they were non-controversial, so we're not going to talk about math errors or double counting, and that E3 found, and that got fixed.
yeah.
So with that, we're going to put off question and answers till the end of this section. So why don't let the joint utilities now go through their presentation on DRV, LSRV, please.
Neither. The first slide is a word slide, so I can probably, oh, there we go. Page up. Maybe?
I think you have to point it.
Okay, at John? Great. Okay, there we go.
Would you rather do it from the podium, Steve?
No, I think this is okay. That way I have my notes in front of me, and I'm facing that audience as opposed to this audience. I'm not sure which is more relevant, but I think that audience is better to prep for the July 10th comments. You guys beat me up all the time anyway. So anyway, this slide describes the approach of how do we take these marginal costs and apply them into the LSRV, DRV. We're going to get into a little more detail of how we split it. But at a high level, what we've tried to do is to lay out the process for determining what a CDG project or even a large C&I project under the value stack would be able to qualify for. So initially, when a project first sort of gets up and running, what we would, because we don't have historical data for it, actually, let me back up a little bit. The LSRV and DRV is really supposed to be performance-based, based on what the individual solar project exports onto the distribution system. And, so to the extent that it produces and discharges coincident with our distribution peaks, it will have more value, which is therefore valued at the marginal cost studies that Snuller described. So the first bullet sort of explains that until we get operating data for a project, we need to start with something. We want to give a project credit day one, even though there might be a lag until the distribution system realizes the benefit, because we want a consistent set of revenues so projects can obtain financing and come to fruition and accomplish a lot of our renewable goals. So we're going to use a typical solar value. We're going to start with the analysis that E3 did for staff, which is my understanding based on an NREL model of what we think typical solar production is. So we're going to use that, let's call it modeled production, to start with an initial coincidence factor. And then when we actually get each project operating during our summers, we'll use project-specific data. Based on staff's recommendations, which got into the commission order, the project-specific data will be the project's production on the top 10 distribution hours. So it's not a 1 hour peak the way those of you familiar with the wholesale capacity market structured. It's a 10-hour peak, and it's determined effectively after the fact, because our distribution systems may peak on different days and different hours, and we'll look at each year the top 10 hours on a load-weighted basis. So the top hour will have a little more weight than the second to top hour that might be 98% of it, but they're all pretty close. And so that's the general concept for all utilities. Con Ed's a little more complicated because we've divided our service territory into 4 groupings of networks based on our CSRP program. So we actually do that 4 separate times, and geographically every project will know what CSRP zone they're in. Some are more daytime peaking, where a solar project probably has more coincidence. Some are more nighttime peaking, where you'd expect less coincidence with our distribution peak. So once we have a working project, let's say something came online started this summer, I figure out the top 10 hours of its production coincident with our top 10 distribution peaks, and let's say hypothetically that's 200 kilowatts. I would multiply it by the appropriate LSRV, DRV values, and that credit would start in next January. So every summer, the performance determines your annual credits starting the following January for that calendar year. And a lot of the numbers we're using are dollars per kilowatt year. So we're going to take that and divide it by 12 and give 12 equal monthly payments based on the prior summer's performance. And until we get real operating data, we're going to use the E3 NREL data as the proxy for what we think the performance would have been until we get real project-specific data. So I'm going to talk you through Con Ed's piece. We're going to do questions at the tail end of this, right? Yes. So each utility will do their own slight variation of it. So this is very similar to what you saw in April, where Con Edison has a 3-tiered criteria. We look at the sub-transmission. This might be a 138 kV feed into one of our big area transformation stations. And if the high voltage feeds are projected by year 2021 to be at 98% or higher of loading, we identified that as a candidate for this higher value LSRV. Similarly, if the station itself is at 98% or higher, we pulled that in. And then if the network that's fed from these stations, and a station can serve multiple networks, if the network is at 90% or higher, we would make that a candidate. That resulted in the list of networks on the left. We'll have a graphic version of that in a slide. On the right, it sort of shows on a percentage basis it shows two things. It shows the megawatts on the scale on the left, so I'll use the Bronx, for example. In the Bronx, the areas that are projected to be close to fully loaded, if I get 9 megawatts of relief, I bring them back to that 98% or the 90%, depending on whether it's upstream or downstream of the network. But the areas I've defined account for about half of the load in the Bronx. So that's those two scales. The little triangle is how much of the load in each of those boroughs or Westchester is in the areas we've identified. And then the bar chart is how much load do I need to unload to get under the criteria. So next slide shows the graphic view of where we are, a little bit of everywhere, with the exception of the BQDM area that we already have programs up and running to solve. So we consciously pulled them off because the incentives we're offering under our BQDM program, in my mind, are the precursor of this LSRV, local premium value. So I think I'm going to hand it off to, here's the how it works out to be on a numbers basis. So until we get real operating data, we're using that NREL data. And depending on which of the CSRP areas you're in, you'll get a certain percent coincidence. Solar in the daytime network, based on the NREL data, is 47% coincidence, so it's getting 47% of the applicable value. In the next window, it's 32%, 13, and 12. To come up with the actual values, we just took our marginal cost study, and we said, let's have, in the premium areas, the combination of the DRV, which is system-wide, and the premium LSRV. We're going to make it 150% of our marginal cost. Could be 100% or higher. You wouldn't want to make the premium areas lower than your average. And so just sort of rough justice, we didn't want to stretch it too much and deflate everywhere else because we don't really have a study that gives us a precise way to come up with the numbers. We are embarking on a study that we hope will do a better job in the future. So hopefully this time next year we'll have a more analytical approach. But in the meantime, we stretched the marginal cost to create a total that was 50% higher. You do the weighted math because our areas are about 19% of our load, so that D averages our 226 to be 199 system-wide. So anything system-wide would have 199 per kilowatt year applicable to the DRV. And to the extent it's in a premium area, it would get the 199 plus the 141 to be 340. Once again, that's the coincident value. We're going to multiply it by actual performance to determine the credits. Handing it off to Kristen. Hand the mics off.
Good morning. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Orange and Rockland's methodology for determining our LSRV areas. So we took a look at our load areas where planned investments were driven by load growth and as identified in our 5-year capital plan, and that's a process that we do annually. So identifying these planned investment areas is done in part by applying design standards to determine if the facility is operating within optimal operating conditions, and these design standards guide the assessment of the proper performance with respect to both serving load as well as being attendant to the number of customer hours of outage exposure. So in order to do that, we took a look at all of those areas, and we came up with areas within the next 10 years that we would be operating outside of those conditions, and we set our megawatt caps in order to bring us back within those design conditions. So we identified areas, about 12% of our New York load, which would affect about 13% of our New York customer base. So here's a flavor of where these areas are, and our plan right now is to define these a little bit more granularly. When we have the tariffs in place, we would have maps available where you could identify where exactly you are within these areas to determine your eligibility for the LSRV. And again, they're all over our service territory. We have a location in Rockland and then 4 in our Orange County service territory, and our caps are shown there. And similarly to the Con Ed approach for arriving at the LSRV and DRV values, we approached it with applying the 150% stretch to arrive at the LSRV. So you take our marginal cost of service value at $70 and you add that premium on top to arrive at $104 for our LSRV plus DRV value. The Orange and Rockland territory does not have the CSRP zones as well defined as Steve had talked about in Con Ed territory. So we're applying the 17.6% system coincidence for the entire territory for the solar production for that first year. And then beyond that, we would again take the actual production of the system. And those are the values that you arrive at there if you're using that 17.6 coincidence for our territory. Is that Brian? Yep. Brian's next?
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. For NYSEG and RG&E, we followed the same model as our marginal study. We
Is your mic on, Mike?
Yes. We used the same as marginal. What we did, we took out our LSRV areas and then ran that same study, and we came up with numbers that were very close to our marginal numbers. You can see NYSEG was $30, RG&E $31, and then and that was for the marginal, and then the DRV came in at 29 and 31. So as Stu had gone through the marginal study, we did it the same way, just removed any LSRV areas. Which one is it now? And then for those LSRV areas, in this initial phase, we just used the areas that were identified as NWA areas, and we have them listed here. We have 4 at NYSEG and 2 at RG&E, and in that table we have it priced out by each individual project.
Okay, at National Grid, we followed a methodology pretty similar to Con Ed and ONR. First, we identified our LSRV areas. We looked for those areas that were expected to reach 100% of substation planning capacity by 2020. Of those substations that we identified, 5 of them already had projects underway or were about to start, so we took those out as there'd be no opportunity to avoid those projects. And then we took out an additional 4 where the megawatt cap would have been so low that you couldn't really, practically have a DER installation that would, be small enough to really fit that need. So we've came out with 53 substations that were chosen as LSRV areas, and they represent 16.4% of our service territory total system load. Then we set the megawatt caps based on the lesser of the load reduction necessary to reduce peak loading to 100% of planning rating. or the substation minimum load level to alleviate concerns about reverse power in a light load scenario. So minimum load levels are assumed to be 25% of forecasted peak loading. The sum of the megawatt caps was a total of 103 megawatts for all of the LSRV areas we identified. Oops. Let me go back. And here's a map. Sorry, it's not too granular. Our service territory is pretty large, but you can see those 53 identified substation areas. And then as far as calculating the monetary values, we did it very similar to Con Ed and O&R. We have slightly different language in our proposal. Just to clarify that, we decided that calling the LSRV an adder on top of the DRV sort of better aligned with just our accounting and billing systems. So we decided to set that adder equal to 50% of the DRV. If you're comparing to Con Ed and O&R, it would be like inflating the marginal cost of service by 139%. So it's just same methodology, just sort of coming at it from a different angle. And then we just applied an algebraic methodology, same type of thing, all pretty much laid out in our implementation plan. Solving for the DRV algebraically, we get 61.44 kilowatt year. And for the LSRV, the adder would be $30.72 per kilowatt year, giving the total value received in LSRV areas of $92.16 per kilowatt year. And I think that's it for National Grid. I think Central Hudson is next.
All right, I mastered the controls. So we did something a little different, as we've discussed numerous times. But it's probably important to say why we did something different once again. And now my mic is on. I just mastered that. So what we did was we said marginal cost of service studies are meant to address what happens when you have that incremental customer to serve. However, they're not there to say what happens, what value should you assign to reducing peak load. And so what we did was initially we were looking at demand response and the value that that could provide to our system. And so we looked at how could we value that in a technology agnostic way, and that's why we looked at our marginal avoided T&D study, which looks at each substation within our service territory that we had data for and says when will load growth in those areas surpass this load serving capability of that substation. Initially, we took a very conservative approach. So our DRV is very conservative. Within the top 5% of growth scenarios, if within those top 5% we triggered an investment or the potential need for an investment, and the need year was within 10 years, we assigned a value to that location. So 5% is pretty conservative when you're looking at system planning. So following that logic, our initial DRV for Central Hudson was $14.55. We have to thank SNU and E3 for providing a second set of eyes on our calculations. And, going through those calculations, we found some small offsetting errors, but, the numbers stayed about the same at 1404. So the next step is taking that DRV, which was built from the bottom up, looking at each of those individual substations, and 5 areas are the driver for that entire DRV value across our entire system. So even though we used very conservative methodology, it was still only 5 areas that triggered that DRV, only 5 areas that had a potential need for investment. So we then looked at those individual 5 areas, and we said, what we're going to do at this point is use our internal system planning criteria
for those 5 areas. So the same criteria that we would utilize if we were going to upgrade a substation or make a capital investment is what we applied within those LSRV areas to say, would DER, an investment in DER, be valuable in these areas? And so the first thing that happens is we stop being so conservative. Instead of using 5% probability to trigger a potential infrastructure need, we went to 50% probability. All right, so that's the reason for the reduction in value in these areas, because when you go from 5%, the top 5% of growth scenarios, to P50, what happens is you push out the investment need year. And when you push out the investment need year, the time value of money comes back with a lower net present value for deferring the infrastructure investment. The other thing we did was we said we wouldn't trigger an investment the second we went beyond our system load serving criteria. We would actually use our system planning risk criteria to say how much room do we have? How much tolerance do we have for this to exceed our system load serving capability? And that differs based on the type of infrastructure that we're looking at, and the table is up there. That's the table that's actually used within our internal system planning criteria when we're looking at substation upgrades. Then finally, what we did was we said, okay, now we have all this information and we have to boil it down into coming up with a value for each of these individual areas. So when we looked at these areas, we said, okay, Coldenham, today we have a non-wires alternative solicitation already out there that's looking at a feeder level issue, and so we'll keep the Coldenham substation in the DRV at this point. We won't do anything until that solicitation is complete and we know what's actually going to happen there. For the other 4 areas, what we did was we said, first, the reason to defer or avoid capital infrastructure is to provide some level of savings to your customers. Right? You're deferring or avoiding utility capital infrastructure investment, so you want to provide savings to your customers. What that number is subject to debate, but our initial estimate was 50% of the savings should go to customers, the remaining value should go to the DER provider. The next step was to then take the net present value of deferring the infrastructure at 50% and convert that to a kilowatt year number. And what you see here is that the numbers drop significantly, and they're each below the $14.55 or $14.04 revised number. And that's, again, because with our more conservative system planning criteria, you push out the need for that infrastructure investment, and when you conduct the net present value analysis, the number becomes lower. The next step was to say, how coincident is solar with the peak within those local areas using the top 10-hour methodology? So in 2 of those areas, you have a pretty decent coincidence. 43% for RDRJ and 25% for the WM line. The other 2 substations are winter peaking, and so therefore there's not much coincidence with those top 10 hours. Then applying that capacity derating factor, you come up with an adjusted dollars per kilowatt year. And that is the last column. When we looked at those numbers, we made a judgment call. And we said, it is probably better to have a DRV at $14.04 than it is to break it out and have locational values at 7 cents, 1 cent, 3 cents, or 4 cents per kilowatt year. So we did not remove those locational values from the DRV. We kept them in the DRV and proposed that we did not have locational values. And that's Central Hudson's approach.
Thanks. You guys all did great. So we have time for questions. We have a podium up here. Make sure you turn the microphone on when you come up to the podium. And a reminder, I really want people to ask questions that are going to help them write their briefs. No. You can ask him behind the scenes. This is for.
Hey guys, thanks. Dennis Fair from.
Is that on?
It is now. So Dennis Fair from Enter Solar. So, you know, what we're looking at here in phase one is primarily solar. We're moving towards storage, and certainly we want to get to smart solar, solar plus storage, dispatchable smart assets on the grid. But when we're taking a non-wires alternative approach, this is really a demand response type of offset here that we're looking at, which solar just doesn't really play well into. So I think we've chosen a bad marker to try and come up with this value. I think the coincident peak of when solar is coincident with the substation peak, that to me seems to have the most value. I'm going to ask each to respond to how you see the solar peak being of value to you guys overall, and how that might play into things. And I'd just like to say this, that in valuing the time value of energy, we're looking at that on a load zone level, which is a really big territory. So the value of that energy is going to shift, but there's a value on time to the substation too, which is that peak. When is that substation being stressed? And it doesn't have to be at or near capacity right now. It's contributing to the peak of that whole, there's a value there. You got to bring more capacity into the region to serve that whole region. And if that's one that can be offset and take the load off of the system there. And Coldenham in particular, we're talking 4 cents. Now, I've got 4 megawatts on that put the Caesars in on Friday. To have that pulled out from the equation at this point, and I didn't know if it was 4 or 3. I just know, and it's not even because it's a non-wires alternative. That kind of, like I've got projects in BQDM too. I don't know if that's a daytime peaker, but I think, so basically I want you to comment on what you think these two different values here, because for me what they do is by valuing both of them, you get smart solar where you want it. You definitely want to have storage dispatchable, so you can shift things. And I think even more so, and this is really important, for on-site solar. So for like Coldenham, that's a wires problem there. I'm upstream, closer to the substation. I don't solve that problem. If I'm behind the meter on site, I solve that problem. So I think we need to value on-site solar too. And there's a difference between compensation schemes and incentives from NYSERDA, but I'd like you to comment just on some of those thoughts there and how that might work into a better system here. Thanks, folks.
Let me just point out at this point, I'm going to take my own medicine and not rise to the level of engaging in oral arguments like I usually do, and let people answer the technical questions.
So I won't address that specific project at length, but I'll answer the technical question. So again, Central Hudson tried to take a very technology agnostic approach, and that's what the marginal avoided T&D study is meant to do. When we're applying the capacity derating or the coincidence factor, that's when we're getting technology specific. And so what we're doing at that point is saying the distribution value for any type of technology that has 100% coincidence would be higher. And then when you apply the coincidence of solar, you're derating to say solar can solve 40% potentially of the need at this substation, which means that if Central Hudson is going to defer an investment or avoid an investment, it needs to find the other 60% of that problem. And so what we're looking at is providing the other 60% with the value that was produced in the avoided marginal T&D study if they are 100% coincident. Otherwise, we would knock them down for a coincident factor as well. But you need to find the other 60% of that problem in order to have a holistic solution that you can utilize to actually defer or avoid the investment. And without that investment deferral or avoidance, you've provided no value for customers. The only value for customers is to avoid or defer the investment that you were going to make. Simply providing capacity to a substation when the need is very far out in the future does not provide an immediate value to customers. It provides a very long-term value to customers that you then have to look at what's that value in today's dollars. And it's generally, if it's very far out in the future, it's pretty low because there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding that, plus there's the time value of money impact.
Just, Dennis, I think you asked about what's the value of reducing peak versus other hours, and the whole basis for the marginal cost study is what is our capital spend to meet new load needs, and that is really driven by peak. So unloading the shoulder of a piece of equipment does not help towards the marginal cost. There might be other values in the value stack to address it, but in terms of the avoiding things that would normally be in our marginal cost study, it really has to align with peak, which is why we were, I think, across the board are all proposing to look at actual performance in the top 10 hours, which even includes perhaps a few shoulder hours, but, you know, aligns pretty well with the real peak rather than trying to come up with values for the shoulder. So I think that was one of your questions.
And I would just add, and the O&M costs associated with that particular piece of capital.
Yes, and the marginal costs pick up the associated O&M with those costs. You also, I think, asked about differentiating between behind the meter and maybe more distribution connected. There could be a piece of secondary, that a behind the meter helps a little bit more for and unloads the secondary equipment, which a piece of equipment tied into the primary would not. So, I think that's an enhancement we can try to address in a future turn of the crank, but that, at least what we have proposed right now is a flatter, simpler set of compensation, either system-wide for 5 out of the 6 utilities or into one of 4 geographic buckets for Con Ed, leveraging off of our existing data.
Unless other folks will go, I'll do the next question. Jordan Giroux with PACE. 1 or 2 questions for NYSEG RG&E. So you identified your LSRV zones just by looking at where you had NWA projects going in, right? I guess just conceptually, if there's money flowing through NWA projects to help solve those needs, where did the additional value come from to apply to LSRV?
They were identified under NWA, but there's no projects.
There's no projects there.
Right.
Okay, so this is money that would have otherwise, but it was just a previous process that went through and identified
Right,
those.
just to have areas for this
Great.
phase. But that's definitely, you bring up a good point in that we need to look at, if we solve it with an NWA, do we pull it from LSRV?
In the future.
Right, and vice versa.
So, follow-up question. Con Ed, for example, went through and showed how they were looking at 98% of rated capacity by 2021 or 90% depending on the type of asset. How does a process like that compare to how you arrived at your NWA selections in this previous DSIP process?
I don't have the information for how we came up with the NWA.
Okay. All right. So, sorry to keep pinning on you.
That's okay.
So, then you subtracted out all of those LSRV areas, this NWA/LSRV
Yes.
areas, and effectively ran the MCOS again to figure out what the rest of the DRV would be for everybody else.
Yes.
And that distinctly, just to tie a bow on it and make sure I'm understanding the compare and contrast here right, that distinctly differs from how, for example, Con Ed put everything in one bucket and then kind of made an artful decision, if you will, to make the LSRV effectively LSRB plus DRV equal to 150% of MCOS. Okay, so you guys separated it out before you ran that, and you guys made a decision. I don't want to say a subjective decision, but
we made an engineering judgment to
Sure.
stretch it because we didn't have the ability to rerun in the time frame to rerun our MCOS study.
I see.
For those, those areas. But we are embarking, as part of our rate case, a revised MCOS study that we are inviting people that are participants to our rate settlement or to participate going forward. So hopefully
Okay.
you'll be able to help us shape that.
So that might be a tool in our toolbox later on. You would not be opposed to conceptually what they did in NYSEG. It's just a matter of time, if you will.
I think we're open to all suggestions. I also like Central Hudson's approach of sort of a priori saying perhaps some of the value should be saved for non-participating customers too.
Thanks very much. Very helpful.
Thanks. Hi, Bill Acker with New York Battery Energy Storage Consortium. Two questions, and one kind of builds on this last a little bit. Interested in the determination of the creation of the zones for LSRV, and Steve, you Central Con Ed used the three different criteria that you laid out of kind of subtransmission level, the area station network level, and some of our members that are looking at larger projects were thinking about beyond a substation look of how LSRV might be able to be applied, particularly thinking a little bit of the subtransmission level and other things like that. So question to the whole group, I think if pretty much everyone else is looking at substations as the key decision point, can you address a little bit more about the thought process behind creating the maps for the LSRVs, and if there's any consideration to other things than to go substation loading? That's question number one. And question number two is just clarification again on the compensation on the 10 hours. It was laid out in the beginning that was on you're looking at the actual performance after year one of the asset, and then applied starting January 1st of next year. So if you have a much better factor because you put an energy storage battery with the solar, that would be measured over that summer and then applied starting January the following year. Is that true for everybody is the question.
Yes. So yeah, the reason that was in the intro slide, that was the comment that we're all proposing to have this summer's performance for an operating unit determine the compensation beginning calendar year 2018 divided by 12 equal months.
Right. Okay, so then back to the first question of the as far as determination of the LSRs, the zones or geographical areas, consideration of sub-network transmission like Con Ed's doing, or other consideration factors. Is that in the thought process for the other utilities, or is that something that's down the road?
So for Orange and Rockland, we're looking at substation area, and then again, our future MCOS would help determine subgranular zones for future LSRV areas.
I think the same for National Grid. I think we're working towards getting to more granular levels, but right now, the substation was about as far down as we could go.
Exactly the same for NYSEG and RG&E.
So at the system-wide level, substation is as far down as we went. When we actually have a capital project below the substation level, we are looking at that and potentially looking at that for non-wires alternatives. So that is exactly how we identified the Coldenham non-wire alternative, and it's also how we identified some of the needs within our current non-wires alternative. We actually had capital projects that we looked at and said, a non-wires alternative could potentially reduce the need for this capital investment. but below the substation, it was specific capital investments that we were looking. It was harder to apply the same methodology we did here based on loading of that equipment.
And Steve, could you explain a little more about your thinking at the subtransmission level, going up from the substation level?
Yeah, so we wanted to capture all of the constrained elements that we thought could impact and or could lead to a future non-wire solicitations, and that's why we looked at not the NISO controlled transmission circuits, but the high voltage circuits that feed some of our stations. And so we looked at that as an input because at least our experience in BQDM, the costs we are deferring are really a combination of the 138 kV feeds plus the cost of a new step-down transformation station to go from 138 down to whatever the primary would be in that network.
Thank you.
Hi, Mike Conley from Borrego Solar. Thanks for the presentation this morning, everybody. Question or clarification for E3 and everyone else, and then follow-up question for Central Hudson. And the table that's the comparison of the marginal cost studies has a number of different adjustments for reserve margin, O&M, working capital. Are those included in the DRV number that gets turned around and as part of the compensation?
Yeah, I think by and large, the bottom row, the end result is the starting point for the DRV value.
Yep.
I think the utilities presented maybe some of adjustments in there, and also be like different years' dollars or something like that. But basically, yes, the bottom line is what went into the DRV LSRV value. Some utilities went down and up. You saw the presentation, so it doesn't map exactly, but that's the point, is that the marginal cost of service studies fed into another process to transform those into
right. And so then the follow-up question for Central Hudson becomes, are there adjustments like this that are included in your marginal cost studies that you would use for a rate case filing that are not included in your T&D study cost, with the point being we don't want to use a different data set for when we're determining rates from the data set that we use from when we're determining compensation, if the compensation is meant to be determined by the marginal cost study.
So this is a very horrible question to ask me because I am not a rates person, so I'm not an expert, but as I understand it, and the reason for the difference is a marginal cost of service study is meant to look at the incremental cost of serving incremental customers. The purpose of this study was different, and that's why it has different methodology applied. Beyond that, I can't really speak to a marginal cost of service study in more detail.
So I'll just add to that. So marginal cost of service studies have that aspect with respect to number of customers. So marginal cost of service study is a very broad term, and then there are aspects of it. Marginal cost of commodity, marginal cost avoided, or marginal distribution capacity cost avoided. And when we start getting down to marginal customer costs and rate design is when things get fun when it comes to rate cases. I think, and Snoo touched on this, and it really was driven home for me in listening to all the presentations and what Snoo's told us, is Phase 2 is going to be very interesting because Central Hudson's marginal cost study here is what we have to look forward to, not that exact methodology, but all those different issues when you want to get more granular to what is an injection from a distributed generator worth, is not the exact same thing not the exact same thing you study for both practical and theoretical reasons when you are looking at what is the best kind of marginal cost study to do for how we set default retail rates. And so a lot of the stuff that Central Hudson did, E3 had trouble mapping it to apples to the rest of what the utilities did. And I think the best thing, at a 50,000 foot level, the most informative thing I heard out of, and I've heard this before, this presentation, out of Joe was, well, look, we could have had LSRV values of a couple of bucks or a couple cents, whatever it was, and then zero DRV everywhere. Or we could go with this conservative approach for DRV and get you your $14 everywhere. What do you want to do for phase one versus where we're going for phase two? So that's sort of my long-winded way of saying these ain't perfect right now.
Right. I guess my big concern is that the DRV and LSRV numbers may appear so low because they're not including all of the costs that the rest of the utilities are including. And I don't know that to be a fact, and I don't want to.
Well, the one issue I heard from Joe was the 50%, right? To say we don't want to give away all the value. We want everybody to be able to value from this investment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be an interesting issue in phase two. Right. I heard Steve say we didn't do that. I don't know.
Correct. We neither Con Ed nor O&R took a haircut to preserve some of that for non-participating
And in phase two,
customers.
I can go into how
And
theoretical economics deals with that issue, but that's definitely not apropos here.
and I think we don't set our retail rates based on marginal costs. We set our revenue requirement based on embedded costs. So there is always a disconnect there, right? But the marginal cost studies that we presented are the same cost studies that we presented and included in our last rate case.
And that's sort of an explanation for why the heck do all these utilities marginal cost studies differ so much from each other? Why haven't we, homogenized them up till now? And a lot of that's related to these things come out of rate case litigation / negotiation. But also, God bless Fred Kahn, but we economists have never been able to get rates all the way up to marginal cost. So the direction in any case is pretty clear. We never get there, but we always know which way we should be going.
There's also another big difference, right? We actually looked at the potential need for the investment within our analysis. Marginal cost of service studies differ a little bit, but we did it at a very granular level and looked at that need. So I think that's got to be taken back as well. There are different reasons for these studies.
Thanks.
Hey guys, Rick Umoff with CS. So just actually, I think it builds off that well. Is just wanted to make sure y'all saw our information requests because that's kind of what we're going to need to be able to respond.
Yeah, and so the whole idea here was to try to prevent the need for too much of that. So if you see any questions that you can cross off the list, let us know.
Yeah, I would love to be able to do that, but I think at this point we're at a stage of granularity, as you say, that it's going to be challenging. So just wanted to, but happy to circle back with you on the break on that too.
Okay.
Thanks.
Good morning. Is this on? Yeah. Hannah Masterjohn, Clean Energy Collective. Wanted to ask about, just kind of make sure I understand, especially I think for Central Hudson, how the way that you've chosen to break out the DRV versus LSRV will end up impacting kind of who can take advantage of it, right? So, and I know you guys have kind of, with the studies you have, with the data you have, taken your best shot at identifying locational values. I get that. I get that it's phase one. I think the commission, with its order, has set up this structure where the generation has a different value depending on who it's assigned to, right? And so if we have a situation where...
Meaning the MTC or something else?
So for CDG projects, demand customers would receive DRV and non-demands would receive the MTC, right? So if you have a situation like in Central Hudson, I just want to see if I'm thinking about this right, where there is no LSRV and there is only DRV, then if you're a CDG project, you are receiving, and let's say you're 100% residential, right? you are not receiving any DRV except to the extent it's captured as part of the MTC, right? And then you cannot access LSRV because there isn't any, right? Is that, I just want to make sure I'm thinking about that right.
And the theoretical DRV number would be the same whether it's in the MTC or not, correct?
Okay, and that's what you're looking at for kind of cost recovery allocation purposes. Okay, so I just want to, I guess, highlight that because, you know, we're coming at this from two different directions. I think folks here from the utilities are coming at this, you know, based on the studies of their systems and estimating the costs as they've been asked to. But I think from the commission's perspective, there's a different question, right? Of like, we're trying to approximate locational values in phase one. We're trying to have the market start to respond to those in phase one. So I just want to make sure we're kind of connecting back, like who can take advantage of them and how can developers and customers access them. And I think that's been a little bit hidden or not fully considered to date. So just, if anybody has thoughts on that,
And I'll say we made a judgment call to say 0 LSRV and to keep the value in the DRV. If developers said we'd rather have this dollar per kW that results from your LSRV calculation, we're fine going that way. We thought that developers would prefer it not to be pulled out of the weighted average that is the DRV, and so we kept it there. Yeah. And again, it's a judgment call, and you know, we didn't know the right or wrong answer while we were making the call.
So I think it's okay for me to say this. I looked Joe in the eye when we were talking about this, and I said, so are you telling me at this point in time you really don't have a good reason for choosing, for wanting this VDER development to occur in one area versus another? And he said, for all practical terms, that's right, Warren.
Okay, yeah, and I'm not picking on Central Hudson or anything. I just wanted to see if anybody had kind of thought through the impact on what types of projects and what types of customers as you were going through this exercise.
So, I will say it would have been interesting if somebody's DRV had come in above an MTC value, because then we would have had an issue.
Yeah. So I think you point out that, and sorry that we didn't explicitly put that in our presentation, but I was assuming people have gone through previous staff's training sessions, and even NYSERDA put on a pretty good one as well, that the DRV is, for all intents and purposes, meaningful to C&I customers or demand build customers participating in value stack, whereas the LSRV is applicable to everybody who locates in one of those those zones identified as potentially higher value.
Right.
So there are different participants who might want it stretched more or stretched less depending on which business model they're in. And yes, we are well aware of it. I think we tried to find a balance that we believe solar development across the spectrum, C&I and mass market, is good, instead of trying to be biased one way or the other. And Joe, not to put words in his mouth, but his numbers came out so relatively small. It's like,
right.
is it noise at a certain point, or is it enough of a differential to matter?
But I hear you, Hannah. We were balancing a lot of things, and one of them that we balanced in was the MTC was the transition mechanism, not a locational indicator, but to the extent it's correlated, it could undo some locational price signals, and that's just a fact, and not a great one, but balance.
Sure. Yep.
And I'll put a plug in. Con Edison does have a series of pending non-wire solicitations out there for people who do want to participate in resources on our website.
Just a programming note also, I'm intentionally letting this go on because I think this is the one area that probably needs the most clarification in the filings. It's borrowing from future discussions in the day, but I think that's a good idea. But if the crowd thinks I'm wrong, let me know.
Mike Conway from Borrego again. This question's about the megawatt caps for LSRV zones from National Grid's filing. The lesser of down to 100% of the planning rating for the unit or substation minimum load. I'm just wondering where that clause for substation minimum load or 25% of peak load came from. Is it just the fact that's where you sort of run into some distribution upgrades like 3v0? If so, we would think let the interconnection process handle that. And then the question for the rest of the utilities is, how do you view 100% of planning rating? If you were a system planning engineer, would you rather say, hey, why not bring it down to 80% of nameplate rating, and then you have a little headroom to work with, rather than stopping right back at 100% of the transformer's usage? Take my answer off the air.
So was your question why we chose to bring it down to 100%?
Yeah, well, I understand 100%. You want the unit to be below its. You don't want the unit to exceed its planning criteria. The question is, why not bring it lower than 100%? And is 100% what everybody's using, sort of homogeneously, or it's not published for every utility, right? So we don't know if one utility is using 80%, one's using 90%. And I had a second part of my question just about that other clause in there for 25% of peak loading, which seems to index itself to some bidirectional power flow stuff. But just wanted to sort of confirm that.
Yeah, so I'm not a planning engineer, so this is sort of based on my best understanding of what they have told me. We're going to take it down lower, but then I think the planning criteria is based on bringing stuff down to 100%, so it's just sort of aligned with our usual practices for planning. I think there is, at least a footnote in our implementation plan that describes this perhaps in better terms. So I think that was the reason for bringing it down to 100 and not lower, just because that's our standard practice. And then with the other piece of that, 25%. The 25% of forecasted peak loading. As that was explained to me, it was to alleviate concerns about reverse power and light load scenarios, and that's about where my knowledge is on that. So, if there's further clarification that's needed, I think we can probably get to that at some point.
And just to add, NYSEG and RG&E, we use that same 25%. So we had 100% of the need, and we set the values at 25%.
So I presented a chart earlier that said our system planning criteria allows us to exceed that limit for some hours of the year. So that's part of the answer. The other part of the answer is that you are getting, in some areas, 40% of that peak need, which means that you need to solve for the other 60%. So before you pay to get below the system planning criteria, you need to be able to find out that you're actually solving the problem that you have. And since we're paying for a future need, saying from one resource we're going to go well below that system planning criteria and provide buffer, I'm not sure if that's a great solution if you're not getting the other 60% of the need that you need. That's a necessary part of the solution.
I think that's true for 60%. If you're dealing with a 60% buffer, it's a little egregious, but. Hello.
Yes.
But if we're now talking about 10 or 20% buffer, that could be more useful rather than just superfluous.
So Con Ed's criteria was actually where we first identified an area was less than 100%. So our megawatts are to bring it to the criteria that was used to initially flag it. So it's 98% for the sub-transmission and the area stations. It's 90% for the lower underlying networks. So the megawatts to in play are to bring it to the level of loading that flagged it as being in play in the first place.
Right. Okay. Great. Thank you.
Folks, Elon Gooder, it's also from Borrego. We're tag teaming a little bit today, so sorry for hearing from a lot of us. I have a couple questions, just generally to all the utilities. You mentioned, I think in some of your presentations, different planning horizons for when you're looking out to sort of figure out whether a DER can provide value or not in a particular zone. How did you select those planning horizons, and how do those sort of compare to what you do in terms of your rate cases and your marginal cost service studies in general?
So Con Ed's 2021 was really our 5-year forecast, which is the time frame that we have most accuracy or resolution into what's happening. And I think the marginal cost studies go out as far out as people want to escalate them, because at a certain point you just add an escalator and you don't really have real projects that are driving them.
Orange and Rockland looked at our 5-year forecast as well, so we brought it to 2021, and then we aligned our areas with planned investments that were 3 years out. So there was a cutoff for the timing. So anything that we were in the process of.
You didn't include things 1 and 2 years
Yes,
out because it's too late to avoid building the utility solution.
But to be clear, you included things that were 4 and
4,
5
yes,
years,
correct.
but not 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10, right?
Correct.
Okay.
I'm not sure of all the details, but I think it's generally the same idea, that it's sort of based on our planning cycles and capital budget cycles, and just what we know at this point. 2020 aligns with how we would, with the picture that we have in front of us for most of our planning.
So it was 3 years out for National Grid. It was till 2020.
I'm not. Yeah, it's based on 2020, but I'm not sure exactly why that is. We might be in the middle of a cycle or something. I'm just not very familiar with the process.
For NYSEG and Argini, I'm relatively sure that the NWA looked at 5 years out, and similar to what O&R is saying, took out ones that were in the immediate future.
Okay. So, I mean, is it fair to say that to the extent that any values in your implementation plans are being assigned to DERs, which after all are at least 25-year assets if they're solar or something else, you're only really looking at the next 5 years. You're not thinking about the value that's going to provide after that?
So we looked at the load, the forecasted load as to what was going to overload certain things to set to generally, with the exception of to flag areas that we thought should be at the higher LSRV, in part of the higher LSRV. The marginal cost study, which in most cases was done a couple years back, right? We didn't run a new marginal cost study this year for this submission, includes all known capital work in the work horizon. In some cases, it'll identify projects that are bigger and known and have more lead time, but it doesn't assume that the lower voltage stuff goes to zero. It will, whatever we know, we typically will then come up with what we think a plausible range is going forward. And so the marginal costs that we are proposing, that are becoming the locked-in 10-year LSRV, a CDG project is getting them for 10 years. The values for 11 through, however long the project's in service will be determined in some future proceeding. So, no, we're not giving you 25 years of our marginal cost right now, but we are committing to, for a CDG project any project in an LSRV area, to lock that in for 10 years, and years 11 through pick a date will be determined at a future point.
Right. Just a reminder from the order. The order said that the DRV and LSRV dollar per kilowatt year numbers would be refreshed every 3 years, and that the LSRV, when you got it, would be locked in. That value would be locked in for 10 years.
Right.
But once we hit a new 3-year cycle, then that would be the new value to lock in for 10 years per kilowatt year.
Right, I understand. I guess I think what I'm hearing is that we were setting LSRV zones based on a 5-year outlook or maybe a 3-year outlook, depending on the utility, and it's locked in for 10. That seems to be a mismatch in some way.
But our forecast accuracy, this summer is better than 5 years out, and certainly better than 10 or 15 years out. So it's, the further out you go, the more forecast uncertainty there is. So we picked something that reasonably aligned with the subset of non-wires solicitations, and in the case of Con Ed, lowered the threshold bar to try to be more inclusive and capture enough areas to be meaningful.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think part of the reason for my question and some of the other questions you might have heard is I think there's concern from some corners that there are sort of assumptions that are being used here for determining a value for a DER that are not the same assumptions that are being used when you're asking for rate recovery for the same assets that we can actually help avoid. So I think that's just thematic. I don't necessarily need a response on that. But I think that's kind of some of the questions that we're asking about.
So in just Central Hudson's case, we did look 10 years out, whether we were avoiding an infrastructure investment over the next 10 years. And I think going beyond 10 years seemed to be looking into a crystal ball at some extent. To some extent, it's very hard to forecast beyond that because you're forecasting customer behaviors and what's going to go on with customers, coming into or leaving your service territory.
Great. Actually, while you have the microphone, I have a question on the Central Hudson proposal, which is something that I didn't really focus on until you said it today, which is you use a 5% growth scenario for DRV and a 50% for LSRV. So what was the reason for selecting one or the other?
So the 5% is probably overly conservative. What that number should be is a judgment call. Again, really what we're saying is when does the level of growth in an area, the forecasted level of growth, trigger a potential infrastructure need or a system need, and what is that need year? And so we used 5% initially in the DRV, probably overly conservative. One of the rationales for doing that was saying if a DRV comes in, it can go anywhere in your system. And so 5%, if growth doesn't happen here, maybe it'll happen somewhere else, realizing that growth forecasts aren't perfect. When we looked at the LSRV, we actually used our internal system planning criteria, and that is more conservative. So whether you say, well, then in the DRV, you should be more conservative and should apply your system planning criteria, that may be a correct answer. Or if you say it should be a little less conservative, but 5% is probably overly conservative.
And just to be clear, so you're saying when you go and ask for rate recovery on distribution system assets, you're using a 50% number for all of those?
Well, I'm going to just say a little. So when we're looking at when would we build infrastructure based on load growth, we're looking at P50 scenarios, but there are many reasons why you're looking at capital infrastructure investment. And load growth for Central Hudson today is probably the least reason that we're looking for a capital investment. There's not much load growth occurring in Central Hudson, and we have non-wires alternatives that cover approximately 17% of our service territory today based on load. So we have taken very seriously this request to defer or avoid capital infrastructure investment based on deploying DERs. And what this study looked at is the remainder of our service territory that's not covered by the 17%, where we've already looked at a solution similar to if we did a substation upgrade. So we looked at the other, 83% of our service territory and said, what can we do there? And again, we have very low or declining load growth in those areas. So the relative answer that we got here that said, what's the value for deferring capital investment is right on track when you have declining peak load growth across the remainder of your service territory.
Did you consider other aspects aside from load growth in terms of, for example, DER's ability to avoid O&M costs or reliability-related investments or things like that?
We looked at the O&M cost associated with the capital investment that would be avoided.
But not with other assets on your
Well,
system.
I want to avoid doing this, but if you have great examples of where that O&M cost can be avoided, that might be something we should talk about later. But at this point, we're looking at capital investment and the associated O&M cost and other costs associated with that capital investment and how can they be deferred or avoided.
Right, but only for investments that are associated, that are necessitated under your planning requirements or whatever assumptions you're making by load growth. You're not looking at O&M largely across the system or anything like that.
Well, I guess I'd come back to that, but not truly, no.
The marginal cost studies are looking at the capital to add extra capability to the system to meet load growth and the associated O&M with that.
Right.
I think in phase 2, we are more than happy to have a discussion of are there other values there. I think the question of off-peak unloading. What is the value there? We should have that debate in a set of work groups that kick off later, because that was not part of the March 9th order.
Right.
But I think we'll have lots of time at future sessions to
I think to be
delve
clear, I'm
into
just
that.
asking because Central Hudson clearly took a different approach than the other utilities. They sort of put a step forward, and I think for better or worse, we're sort of seeing, the rest of the utilities sort of said we're kind of stuck with the marginal cost survey studies we have. That's all we can look at, which I understand, and we're not asking you to kind of do that now, but we do have a different approach that was kind of consciously selected.
So
for
my
this,
point
right?
is, even under a Central Hudson approach, I don't think any utility is contemplating a marginal cost study that would capture O&M that was not associated with capital upgrades that were required to expand system capability.
Okay.
Our ongoing labor to sort of cost of business would not be a candidate for a marginal cost study under any scenario, whether it's probabilistic or traditional.
And just a cross-programming note, I forget what it became called in the DSIPs, but there was the whole what projects are subject to NWA, what projects are not. Yeah.
Suitability criteria.
And that was a whole another stakeholder process, and it's clearly related to this, and it's clearly related to phase 2. But I'm going to make a command decision and say, we're going to cut this off after the two people that are standing up get their questions, and then we can talk about whether to take a lunch break or go on to the next section.
Warren, do you mind if I ask one clarifying question that's short? Shouldn't be a...
Sure.
One last one. Just, again, for Central Hudson, I think I heard you
Just
say...
because I'm not Scott. Because you would be out.
I think I heard you say in your presentation that you were sort of either derating the value or derating the number of megawatts in your LSRV zones that could be served by DERs based on the coincidence with peak. And then, but my understanding of the March 9th order is that there's already sort of a derating built in, which is the top 10 hours. If you're not performing during those 10 hours, you're derated based on how well you perform during that peak, right? So are you double derating, or is that just illustrative of what we could expect of a typical solar facility, for example?
That was illustrative.
Illustrative, okay.
Yeah, it's the difference between a system-wide that is pretty much 40% coincident, and then when you look at these locational value areas, some have 1% coincidence.
Okay, but it's meant to be illustrative.
Right, but you're going to come up with a number, and it's whatever they produce in that period is what they get paid for, and it's not a number that's based on the fact that they might have produced less.
And I did want to clarify on your first question. While it was a 5-year capital plan that we looked at, once they were identified, we did look at the 10-year forecast to establish the caps for O&R.
Okay, thanks.
Carl Robigo with Pace. I think I can be brief because of what I just heard. I was going to ask, do you think the purpose of this this exercise is to try to put DER on an equal footing, if you will, with investments, self-build options? But it sounds like, and I'll just ask this, it sounds like what you're saying, the utility view is to put DER on an equal footing with some utility self-build investments and some of the costs associated with some of those self-build investments. Is that a fair characterization?
I would say that's the purpose of the non-wire solicitation is to evaluate if there are DER alternatives and put them on an equal footing with anything that is deferrable or avoidable. Here, we are actually, in my mind, putting some value stack resources ahead of, and will be giving them credit even in many cases where we have no ability to defer the investment.
That's your 98 and 90% numbers?
That is because, no, that's because we're going to establish a set of compensation based on marginal costs, and we may not get the right amount of resources into the mix to actually defer anything.
Okay.
Right? So if I have a 10 megawatt need and I get 2 megawatts of resources, I still have to, maybe I do it a year later, but I still have an 8 megawatt need I need to meet. Whereas if I do a non-wire solicitation, I can find out, do I have enough resources to solve my problem, which I think puts it on an equal footing. Here we're creating a less precise, but as directed by the Commission, a less precise compensation way that perhaps over the long run comes out to be the right amount, but we're going to have some near-term mismatches, and I'd actually say we're being more generous to these resources than other non-wire solicitations, but that's
This is
that's
starting to
just my
sound
opinion.
argumentative instead of clarification to me, but that's just me.
I'm sorry, I just reacted to the question because I see it the opposite way.
That I would have something behind my question is a shock to me.
So-
too. Yeah.
Carl,
But it sounds like an interesting brief to come in.
That's kind of why I was.
I'll answer for Central Hudson. So when we looked at the locational value, we said that that was pretty low when we applied system planning criteria, which would put it on equal footing with the utility investment. We then decided to put it back into the system-wide weighted average number, which is a significantly larger number that was developed based on significantly more conservative criteria for saying whether a system need was there. So when you look at it from that perspective, again, we're being probably more generous than if we were putting it on equal footing with a utility investment.
And so these numbers are not going to be perfect. We're in phase one. They might be a little too high, too low, but it's phase one, and we're going to do better in phase two.
My question was about the objective. That was just what you're trying to do, what you're trying to hew to. Yeah. That's a good objective.
All right. Thanks.
Hey guys, thanks. Dennis from Intersolar once again. So, Joe, I loved the study. A lot of information there, a lot to think about. And Steve, breaking things down into different time frames like that is very useful. So non-wires alternative, basically, in most cases, it's a demand response kind of solution. There are times when we're looking at, coincident peaks where solar can have, an application. But in general, I would say it's geared much more towards responsive assets that can meet a very time-specific goal. Now, if we agree that solar without storage is not a dispatchable asset, how is LSRV and DRV technology neutral? Does it really encompass the value of solar?
I'm sorry. That's an open-ended question, not how did you put this together.
Well, it's not for them. It's for you, really, because
Well,
you put them in the box. They're
explaining their May 1st filings and their May 15th filings so that people can file their July 12th comments on implementation. So I'm going to say, let's talk about whether it's, I don't have an answer. I'm not going to give you an answer to your question.
Okay.
That to me is us fighting again about oral arguments about what's the purpose here, what's life all about, Alfie.
And I think it's more of a phase. It's really more of a phase two question. Although certainly in your implementation plan comments, you can suggest that we modify it even for
I would argue this is
implementation
phase
of
two.
phase one.
What we missed in phase one is the locational value of solar.
It's a position, took a shot.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you. So the question is, do you guys want to jump into ICAP, which is, I think, another important area that people have questions on, or do you want to take lunch now and then come back and start at ICAP? Lunch. I see a lot of smiles for lunch. Lunch. And so should we make it, is 45 minutes enough for people to get back for lunch?
It's
all right.
reasonable.
So it's 12:15 now. We'll start again at 1 with ICAP.
I think if you're on the phone or the webcast, you can probably just either stay on if you want or call back in log back in, call back in at 1. Either should work fine.
Section, we're on section 3, comparison of proposed ICAP methods and calculations. E3 is going to start it off, and then what we're going to do, because Snoo's a wrong coaster, so we're going to have you ask questions for Snoo and then let him escape when he has to catch his plane. And then we'll move on to C&D with the utilities. So why don't you go ahead, Snoo?
Okay, thanks. Welcome back, everyone. As this morning we were talking distribution, we're going to switch gears and we're going to talk about capacity, generation capacity, and the ICAP, and the proposals on how to formulate the ICAP component and the value stack. Let's see if we go up. The second section. Go down. Yeah, it's roughly slide 8. This is distribution. Keep going. There we go. Up one more back. Just a little procedural history. Probably everyone in the room knows, but staff directed the utilities to develop capacity payments for the value of DER using 3 alternatives. And this is the ICAP value and the value stack. And the 3, all the utilities filed a methodology, I think around May 1st, and that was methods. And then they filed, well, if we use the methods, we get to these values on their May 15th filing. So we looked at both of those. I'm going to walk a little bit through alternatives 1 and 2, and I think the JU presentation is going to talk a little more depth about the alternative 3 components. So we switched up the agenda a little bit on you. Alternative 1 and 2 both link to a service class proxy. So this is the class of customer service that is picked among those that they already have in order to get back to appropriately, as good a value as possible. So I know this morning we were talking a little bit about, well, phase 1 and we can get better, phase 2 and we can get better. There's only a limited number of service classes to choose from that the utilities had. And so we're going to get into what those were. But, these are general service customers, general service customers, other classes that are sort of a category already for the calculation of the MSE charge. So alternative 1 is, and you can go to the next slide, or I can. So alternative 1 is pretty straightforward, really. It's just the capacity portion of the supply charge for the service class, dollars per kilowatt hour paid per kilowatt hour of output. And really, once you've picked the service class, then it's pretty straightforward to get to this value. And alternative 2 is really just directly related. It's just the sum of what all those payments are expected to be divided back out by the highest load hours, which are hour 14 through 18, June through August. So the sort of the summer afternoon, 460 hours. So they're really the same total. If you have the exact same shape, it's the same total amount of dollars for ICAP. One is divided over your output into 460 hours. The other one's just the entire output. Okay, so they're really quite related. Alternative 3 puts the service class proxy on the wayside and just bases the amount on your actual output profile. I think that's been suggested for dispatchable generation and other types of generation options. And I think a few of the utilities in their filings developed alternative 3 more than others. And so I think we're going to hear from the JU in the next section on sort of how alternative 3 is looking. So if we go to the next class, alternative 1 and 2 really hinges on what you pick for the service class proxy and whether you even have a service class that looks like a solar, right? Because solar is going to be on during the daylight hours by definition, and what classes look like that. And, I think this is an area where we have to get sort of most pragmatic, and I thought that the way that ORU and Con Ed went about this makes sense, which is really, let's just take the service classes and take the ratio of what the peak ICAP reduction is for the class relative to the total energy in the class. Forget about the shape. Just what's the peak amount of capacity reduction per kilowatt hour, because that's what I'm trying to get to, and then pick that class and use that as the selection criteria for the service class proxy. I think when that happened, I think ORU happened to have a service class that looked close, relatively reasonable. I think when Con Edison took that approach, their their closest service class looked like it overvalued capacity by a pretty significant amount to us. The other utilities all had methods as well, and they were more on the shape relative, comparing the shapes components. I think when I'm done, the utilities will also talk a little bit more detail about how they actually chose the service class proxy, because that's really the key driver and the key variable in this whole exercise. So if we go to the next slide, or the next, let's see. Oh, I've got it. Sorry. So this is just the results table of what service class proxy was chosen by which, for which utility. We already talked about ORU and Con Edison. Central Hudson, looked like they tried to look at how the fit was, but, you can only pick, you only have like 9 or so service classes with some variations. So it's not an infinite range. And so if you can't find one that looks like solar, it's not that surprising. And so, I think that this method worked for phase 1. We've got values, we've got charges, but we weren't surprised that there's not always a service class that fits for a solar output. So if you go, I know this is in part a fairly pragmatic group that wants to look at what the numbers are. From the May 15th filing, if you put them on the page, what you get with this are the following numbers. And here we just translated directly like what the filing had in terms of the numbers for alternative 1 and alternative 2. You see on the left side, the upstate utilities, NYSEG, RGE, Niagara Mohawk, are in the 1 to 1.5 cent range. Con Edison has 2 zones for their ICAP component, the city in Westchester, and that's 3.5 cents. And then ORU is somewhere in between, is Central Hudson is kind of pretty much in line with the other upstate utilities. So that's sort of just how it comes out when you do that. And we listed which proxies they had. Alternative 2 should be pretty much just a reformulation of the same amount of dollars, but allocated out over the 460 hours. And so, yes, the numbers are higher, 10 cents to 30 cents, but it's paid out over a lot fewer hours, and it comes out to be the same money with the same shape. So the next slide, I wanted to show everyone.
Snoop, just a clarification. When you say the same money with the same shape, the same money for the service class,
right,
divided by the service classes KWH in those 460 hours, not necessarily the same money for a solar developer.
True. Fair enough. And I think that is why you see a little bit of a different shape in the result. Because, sorry, I'll stop. I'm going too fast. I can explain this a little better. So alternative 2, notice it doesn't have exactly the same pattern. Central Hudson's alternative 2 is a little bit higher, and that's because when the alternative 2 is formulated, it's the sum for the service class divided by the sum of the kilowatt hours of that service class in those same 460 hours. Okay, so if you have fewer in those 460 relative to the overall, you're going to get a lower denominator and a higher result. Okay.
And note the scales are a factor of 10.
Yes, they are. But so is the billing determinant, right? So, okay. So then the last thing we did was compare to the order, and just sort of how did these numbers from the May 15th filings come out compared to what was in the order. And so you can see actually the answer to that is actually pretty close for most utilities. It's the same shape. I didn't have the value. As best I could determine, the commission value of DER order didn't have number comparable to Con Edison Westchester. But for the other I think their number in there was a New York City number. But you can see how the sort of relative order of magnitude came out for that component.
And it was a 3-year average for, as an example, service class 1. So it's not an apples to apples comparison, but I asked Snoot to put that on there just because I knew people would wonder, how does this compare to what was in the order?
Okay, so that was the, before turning it over to the utilities to talk about their service class selection and alternative 3, and they're part of the presentation. Are there other questions for me about this and sort of what we found going through all this? And I'll be around for a little bit. I don't have to quite catch my flight yet. So if other things come up in the question, but I might take a seat in the back. So you sure can.
Let's pop down a few slides. Here we go. On slide 20 for those following in hard copy. Anyway, just a high-level review of alternate 1. As Snoo explained, it's the default for intermittence, and basically it will give a credit for all of the kWh of exports. And the utilities identified their service class that approximates solar production, and I'm giving sort of an overview at a high level of the timing of it, so I figured I would at least share with you on the front end the Con Ed and ONR analysis, and that way I'll hand the mic over to my utility colleagues at the tail end of my section for their utility-specific selection. So as Snoo indicated, we looked at our largest service classes and basically looked at the peak to annual kWh ratio, also looked at the peak to summer kWh ratio, because ICAP costs are really a sort of an annual demand charge by the New York ISO. Your usage coincident with the New York ISO system peak determines your capacity obligation for a full 12-month capacity year, which is the following May through April. So whatever my peak is this summer determines my capacity obligation starting May 2018, running through April 2019 on a slight lagged basis. We'll get into some of the subtleties of that a little bit. But basically, Con Ed, we looked at our 3 largest service classes. We didn't look at all of them. We have some obscure, perhaps less populated service classes, as well as some that deal with, electric heat that we just didn't put into the mix to look at. But the solar, based on the NREL data, is basically for the looking at the right-hand column, for its peak, you get about 7,677 kilowatt hours relative to its coincident peak production. So don't confuse this with the maybe 1,200 or 1,400 full load hours you get out of a solar plant relative to its nameplate. You got to look at its peak reduction, which might be a third of the nameplate. So you're sort of grossing up the same kilowatt hours by a smaller denominator, makes for a bigger ratio. So with that, the closest we got out of our 3 big classes is our service class rate 9, which is our demand build commercial class. That's typically applicable to customers that might be 10 kW up to about 1,500 kW. So it's our pretty broad class. ONR, same sort of ratio with the NREL data, slightly different. The E3 NREL data was service class specific, service territory specific, so they projected a slightly different mix of production in the Hudson Valley than you might have expected for downstate Con Ed. And so their ratio was 1 to 7515, and ONR's demand build commercial class, they call it SC3, is a pretty good fit, 1 to 7,093. So that was our selection criteria. Some of the details of alternate 1. Con Ed and ONR pick their capacity costs and publish them twice a year. We use the strip auction price really as the basis for what we expect our capacity costs to be in determining our capacity prices for all of our default customers. In contrast, NYSEG, RG&E, NIMO, and Central Hudson set it monthly. So while Con Ed and ONR effectively publish a monthly rate, it doesn't change for the first 6 months of the summer and changes then for the 6 months of the winter. So that's the time frame of when you would expect to see the ICAP credit to change. Once again, Con Ed and ONR, same volumetric credit summer, May through October, a change winter, November through April, which is in line with how we set capacity charges. The other utilities, month-to-month variations. May could be different than June, July, August. Generally in the ICAP market, there's a seasonal difference. Summer is higher than winter for some technical reasons. I can chat with you offline. I'd rather not bog it down here because that's ICAP 101 and might be going on in the New York ISO today. But the general gist is the credits in any month should reflect the capacity prices for the New York ISO in that same period, right? So your May credit will reflect the May market prices. Your June credit will reflect the June capacity market prices. Now I'm going to talk to alternate 2, which is a little bit different. Here the commission order said on May 15th of a given year, I have to publish what the capacity value is to be paid out June, July, August afternoons, but what is the capacity value for a whole year? Well, I don't know a whole year's value going into that capacity year. So what the utilities proposed, we are going to, for alternate 2, look at last year's actual capacity credits, figure out what that would have been as a credit for that service class, compress it into what would we have charged that service class over just the summer 460 hours from 2 p.m. through the full 6 p.m., which is really through 6:59 if you want to measure it that way. And so converted last year's capacity price into this summer's suggested price. So what are the implications of that? Well, one thing, it sort of front loads the capacity revenue that a project electing alternate 2 will get their full years of capacity in June, July, and August instead of spreading it around the whole year. The other phenomena is it's on a lagging indicator. So this summer you'd get a credit based on last year's capacity prices, and next summer you'd get a credit based on this year's capacity prices. So I'll then touch on alternate 3, which is even a little different. This is the mandatory for dispatchable units, but obviously an option anybody can elect. And these options, by the way, per the commission order, are one-time elections. You can't go back and forth. Alternate 3 is sort of like our LSRV, DRV approach. It's performance-based. We will look at the actual production coincident with the New York control area peak, which is how ICAP's measured. So not our utilities distribution peaks, not the 4 CSRP zones, but one control area-wide peak for the state. And so the performance this summer effectively determines the rating beginning for the next planning year. So a project in operation this summer under alternate 3, which doesn't yet exist because we don't yet have a commission tariff, but bear with me, if we did and we had projects under this, their performance this summer would determine their compensation beginning May 2018 through April 2019. Similarly, performance next summer, in summer of 18, will determine compensation May 2019 through April 2020. So the capacity, we're not getting a capacity product that we can actually turn over to the New York ISO and sell. We are treating this as a load reduction. So what happens, since it's a load reduction, a couple of phenomena happen. If it was a pure generator, let's say it was located in the Hudson Valley, it would get a Hudson Valley clearing price. If it's a resource load reduction in Hudson Valley, it reduces some Hudson Valley as well as some rest of state. If it's in New York City, it reduces New York City, Hudson Valley, and rest of state according to a blended formula, the way the New York ISO assigns capacity obligations. On top of that, there's something called a reserve margin that the NISO throws in. So I created on slide 23 a hypothetical. What if you had 1,000 kilowatts of injection, nice round number, back in 2015. Sorry I didn't update this. This was a presentation I made back in the spring, but it shows the concept. Back in 2015, the reduction to the peak would determine the obligations beginning May 2016. So I used the capacity clearing prices and all the details. So reading across the first row, the New York ISO for a given kilowatt or 1,000 kW of load will say the capacity obligation, and they have a funny term, they call it unforced capacity, but that's their traded product. You have to buy 106 plus a little percent of your peak load of capacity. And if you're located in New York City, you got to get a big scoop of New York City-based capacity, the 72.83. The New York ISO then publishes kind of the total Hudson Valley zone requirement, which is 82.86, but really to find it incrementally, the in-city piece counts as towards your Hudson Valley. So if you drop down a row or two, you get the delta, but let's hold on to that. So the delta is about a 10% difference, which is the incremental GJ. And then your statewide requirement is 106%, but your in-city and your GJ count towards that, so incrementally you need to buy the delta of the two, which is 20.4%. But we're not done there. The New York ISO makes it even more complicated. They have something called a demand curve, and based on each month's clearing price, they might make you buy a little excess capacity. That's that next row. So if I thought I had to buy 106% statewide, I have to, back in May 2016, I had to buy another 5.8 on top of it. So my real requirement at the end of the day was 112.38, which had a New York City and a Hudson Valley component. My next piece, I just take the delta of each one, so that out of that 112.38 effective or net requirement, 78 was in-city, 8.5 was Hudson Valley, and 25% was rest of state, or however you want to describe it. Then you see the clearing prices. So each zone has its own value. This is determined every month. And I just did a weighted price. So the math works out to be about $11.87. And I said, oh, I forgot to gross it up for line losses. So you get another 6.3%. So back in a resource, a hypothetical resource, injecting 1,000 kilowatts in New York City, Zone J, in 2015 would have earned in May of 2016 $12,610 of capacity credits to then be allocated to its subscribers, or if it was a large commercial project, to offset its bills.
And Steve, just to clarify, because these different alternatives require, at least alternative 2 does, different price vintages for calculating prices ahead of the summer, whereas this is more like alternative 1, where you're using going forward prices, but the coincident peak from this summer's for your KW, but then going forward, it's the going forward strip prices.
Correct. We will need a proxy to get started until the project is up and running and performing. But once it's up and running and performing, and we'll use actual performance. And the other part of Warren's point is the clearing price will be the then current clearing price. So while this was an example, because I had too much on my plate to update it for May 2017, sorry, I used prices from May 2016, but the concept's the same. each month the credit will reflect the monthly clearing price as posted by the New York ISO, akin to what alternate 1 is, which is really conveying under a different formula what is a market price for that same period, whereas alternate 2 is sort of the rear view mirror. I'm always giving on a 1-year lagged last year's prices this year, which I think was the other part of your point. So with that said, I'm going to turn over to the other utilities, and I think Brian is next in the order. Once again, we haven't adjusted our seats to reflect our sequencing of the slides, but we'll get there eventually, to explain NYSEG's curve fit and selection of service class.
All right, so for our best fit analysis, we did, our forecasting group took a correlation coefficient and really just looked at the 8760 data, the hourly data for a year, for the service class compared to solar, and used the service class that had the best fit. For NYSEG, it turned out it was SC2, which is general service with demand, and RG&E was same SC7, which is also general service with demand. And you can see the two graphs there. That's I just picked a weekday in July just for an illustration, just to show the shape of these, and that's the best relative fit that we came up with using the correlation coefficient method. We then, after the filings, we looked at how Con Ed and O&R had done theirs with more of a peak to KWH ratio scenario, and we came up with, if we use that method, we would use NYSEG SC3 and RG&E SC2. And I put on the slide there the 3-year weighted average of the two. They're very similar, so the methodologies come up very close. And if I did any filtering, SC3 has very few customers in it. There's, I believe, a couple hundred customers in that service class. If I'd filtered out that small service class, I would have ended up on SC2. And just one thing to note on the RG&E, the RG&E SC2 is a hedged service class. So with the non-hedged service classes, the way that we buy capacity is we do monthly as opposed to 6-month prices. We do the ICAP, or the UCAP, and the reserve is priced using the monthly auction price, and then the demand curve adder is priced using the spot price. That's how we do our retail rates. That's how we would propose calculating these. The small service classes are hedged, so if the market price that given month went through the roof, it wouldn't be reflected here. Conversely, if it dropped, it most likely wouldn't be reflected here. So just something to keep in mind. Over time, we've seen that they come in very close to each other. Month to month, you're going to see differences if we ended up with a hedged service class.
So for National Grid's May 1 filing, we proposed a methodology for picking the proxy load shape that was pretty similar to what Brian and NYSEG and RG&E did. We really just looked at a methodology that compared all hours of the year between the load and generation, rather than just a 1-hour comparison. And while the 1 hour of the NICA peak is really what's important for determining ICAP value, I think we're just thinking of looking at which load shape would be most likely to be most similar going forward, and not necessarily reliant on the previous year or historical average of the NICA peak hour. So it's really just a comparison of what's likely to be most similar no matter when the NICA peak happens this summer coming up. So we came out with SE2 non-demand, that's small commercial. But we also took a look at, after the fact, after our filing went in, we took a look at how it would turn out if we adopted the methodology proposed by Con Ed and ONR, and we got the same result, SE2 non-demand. I think we just sort of interpreted the order a little bit differently. So we're open to using either methodology or some kind of combination, or whatever it's determined the commission thinks most reflects the order. We get SE2 non-demand is sort of the clear winner no matter how we cut the data or no matter which methodology we use. So we're open to either way. And that was the next slide that I forgot to show.
That's good. For Central Hudson's May 1st filing, we used a method similar to NYSEG RG&E where we looked at the correlation coefficient. We looked at classes that had significant number of customers, and then in effect broke out SE1 into heating and not heating to see if there was a difference. Our SE2 class contains 3 levels: non-demand, secondary demand, and primary demand. We excluded the primary demand. It had less than 100 customers. And the secondary demand and primary demand that we did look at excluded hourly priced customers. So they're just our retail customers who would take full service under our market price charge. Again, we looked at the correlation coefficient on 2015 loads that we had from load research data, and looking at the simulated solar shapes that were provided. And based on that review, we selected the secondary demand class. We recalculated using ONR's method and also included the SE2 primary class in that review. That review indicated that the primary class should have been selected. I took that one step further to see what it would have done to the prices that we filed. The difference is that the ICAP price for the primary class would be about 1.1% lower using that method.
So I think that's it for our prepared remarks. Happy to take questions about the comparison of the 3 different alternatives or the specific utility methodologies presented for selecting the service class with the best fit, or whatever else people want to chat about. It's Monday. I still have a lot of energy. It hasn't worn out yet.
Jordan Drew with Pace, just to get us kicked off. Steve, you guys seem to stand out a little bit in how you picked your service classification. Did you do a best fit analysis similar to what some other folks up and down the row are speaking of?
We did not. We immediately went to the sort of peak to KWH just because of the underlying cost structure of ICAP. So we only evaluated one thing, and unfortunately this is the example of different utilities kind of coming up with their own interpretation of how to respond to the commission order and presenting it.
So you wouldn't be able to say how it might have affected the analysis if
yeah, correct.
Okay.
We did not do an R-squared curve fit the way the other utilities had done.
Okay, that's it then. Thank you.
Yep.
Bill Acker from New York Best. Steve, first of all, I appreciate you taking the time to work through the fact that taking the ICAP from a load perspective is different from a generation perspective, which was actually the root of my question back on the May 23rd meeting. In your slides, you have that as mandatory for dispatchable assets in the title of the slide.
For alternative 3, yeah, that's
alternative three.
what the commission said. This is not something we're imposing.
So maybe this is a part of this so if we have solar and storage together,
so
you know what that's considered now?
Yes, that is considered non-dispatchable for this purpose.
Okay.
If
solar and storage together can do any of those three options.
If they're behind the same meter, yes, you can elect any of those three. You know, I would our filing said it's a one-time election to move, you know, down the pecking order. So you can't flip-flop back and forth.
And that's consistent with the order as well.
Okay, good. And then so then can you just explain a little more on alternative 2 or for the group as a whole? Understanding is once you've got a price per kilowatt hour based on the service class that's been being used here, for those 460 hours, we're going to be tracking the actual output kilowatt hours and applying the value from that. So if we have energy storage and solar together, and we're using the energy storage to firm the solar from, say, 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. during that time period, we would just be summing any of the exported power from any of those two sources combined within the same meter. Is that how you're viewing it?
Yes. We still need to work out what to do with RECs. I believe that's a separate, for perhaps phase 1.5 effort, you know, but correct. All exported power in those 460 summer hours, 2 p.m. through whatever, 6:59, June through August, would be eligible for that 30-cent credit instead of the Alt 1 is maybe a 3-cent credit.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Hey, it's Melissa Kemp from Cypress Creek. I had a couple of different questions. The first one was just a clarifying point on the different ways that you guys showed arriving at which service class would be most appropriate. Very helpful presentations to see the different ways you guys had done it and a little more detail in those slides than was in the filing from what I could see. Is there any thought about putting those on the record somewhere, like in the docket? I saw I think in your filings that you're thinking in the future, if service classes change, you might reevaluate which is the best fit, right? I saw that somewhere at least mentioned once or twice.
Yes, I think there's a couple of things as we grow and gain experience, and I think the commission order said we're to choose the service class that best fits. My read of it, that would give us the ability over time, if we create new service classes or the usage characteristics of service classes change, that we could reevaluate which is the one that best fits that.
And so I assume that will be decided on by the commission and staff if that's the correct interpretation. But if it is, or even if it's not, I think it'd be really helpful to have a little more of this in the record so we could see in just a little more detail how those correlation curves, looked. Like the summary was great, but there's a lot more detail than that, right? Or I know you guys have a table, which is probably sufficient for that method. But I think there's some more detail that I would love to see, just particularly if they're going to change going forward, so we have a baseline for how good was the fit in either methodology today before we change them in the future.
Right. So all the, I believe all utilities, the service class load profiles are out there, are public, so you can, if you want to slice and dice them however you want and look at fit methods.
Right, but if you guys already did your correlation analysis, that would just be a helpful reference point, I think, as a foundation for this proceeding, particularly if it's going to evolve over time. Maybe more interestingly, my second question relates to, so I think 4 out of the 5 of you ended up with a demand customer load profile, right? And then just a clarification question on that then. Is there any capacity value in the demand charge for those customers as opposed to in the kilowatt hour rate?
No.
Okay, it didn't appear so from the slides, but
capacity is a purely supply charge, and so if you're with an ESCO, that whole charge comes from the ESCO.
Okay, great, thank you. And then I think the last thing on this point, the retrospective versus prospective. It sounds like all of you, except for Con Ed and O&R, for method 1, are using a retrospective, right? Historical. Look back at the last 12 months. That's really easy for developers to model and. You guys have a different prospective approach?
So I think we're all in the same boat in that Alt 1 will be the current market price using the service class load shape. The subtlety there is Con Ed and ONR pick a value for all 6 months based on the strip auction, whereas the other utilities are a little more granular and pick monthly values. Those two should
No, I'm aware of that difference, but you're saying yours is
Alt2
not. I thought in your slide it just said you were looking prospectively for method 1, method 2 you were going to look historically.
So but all utilities are going to do it that way. For alternate 2, all utilities are going to look back.
And back is
I'm
great.
sorry. I thought I misunderstood your question. I thought you were saying Con Ed and ONR were doing it differently than other utilities for
Alt2.
Alt2.
No, you guys are on the same page for Alt2.
Yep.
Alt1. We kind of have read the order and have seen that as a historical thing, which makes a lot of sense from a development perspective to be able to model. I mean, you look at more than just historical data, but to be able to model going forward, you guys seem to stand out to me as looking at prospective numbers, which are even more, in my mind, hard to put a finger on. I wonder if you could address that a little bit.
So I think all utilities under alternate 1, which is really how we cost out ICAP to our customers now, are using, and I'll call it the current price. The fact that one set of companies is looking at an ISO auction that clears for 6 months, and others are looking at ISO auctions that clear a month at a time, I'm viewing those as effectively the same thing. I know it's a little different.
But are you looking at the last 6 months?
No, I'm looking prospectively. So for this May.
So I know, like Central
October,
Hudson, I know looks at because they actually detailed the historical values in their filing, and you guys had the last 3 years, and you said look at the last 12 months. Sorry, Central Hudson.
As an example for Con Ed and ONR, when we file, for example, our summer May through October market supply charge or capacity statements, embedded in those numbers or included on a statement is a price that will stay consistent for the 6 months. And I think that's the difference, whereas the other utilities will change monthly based on the monthly auction price versus ours is the 6-month strip price. I think that's the difference in the alternative 1 methodologies. Correct me if...
Well, I think there sounds like there's 2 differences. One is how frequently you make this procurement, right? And therefore how frequent a price you have. But the other is whether ONR and Central Hudson, ONR and Con Ed are looking 6 months back for the last 6 month strip or 6 months forward.
No one's looking back. Everybody's looking forward.
You guys are, but I'm saying
okay.
I don't read Central Hudson, NYSEG, RG&E. It just appeared in the filing to be a last 12-month average.
For Central Hudson, it is for
or
alternative
total.
1. We did 12 months, and we did that to be consistent with alternative 2, which uses that same 12-month period.
Okay. I mean, I think it would be very helpful if it was consistent, and just maybe food for thought as we go into the rest of the proceeding. But
So I can say what the commission had in mind with alternative 1, 2, and 3. So alternative 1 was intended to be similar to what net metering got a developer. That is, it's whatever the retail charge was that month for capacity, and then it became a new retail charge the next month for capacity. And it sounds to me like that's what most of you did, whether it's based on a 6-month forward or it's based on a 1-month auction. It's what essentially MHP customers are charged, or what's put in the SC1 statement every month for the capacity charge at Con Ed and ONR. That's going forward, essentially, not looking back. For the alternative 2, everybody had to make a decision on, all right, if we're going to signal a price for this coming up summer that then gets paid for each of those hours this summer, like a TOU tariff, what do we use for the price? And everybody said, we're going to use historic. And then I have to get into alternative 3.
So Warren, can you then clarify? So you're saying that in Con Ed and ONR, every month when they're billing their customer for capacity based on their 6-month
strip
for the future?
Yes, despite
even
our witnesses' best efforts to get them on a monthly in rate cases, they are still using a 6-month strip. ICAP is its own world, so you can
Okay.
make
And
arguments.
so you're saying they all match up because it is what they're actually billing their customer.
Well,
even
then
though
I
it
just heard
underlies it.
something different from Central Hudson based on your very good cross-examination, that they actually tried to be consistent with their alternative 2, with their alternative 1, and used something that I hadn't thought of, a year's historic for alternative 1 to make them consistent. And I guess I can see where you would get that from the order as well, where the order was saying, do the same kind of thing, but squash it into 460 hours. I just hadn't anticipated that somebody would do that. So there's a difference. I'm not sure what to say about it right now.
Okay. All right. Then I'll ask the last question I had. It was just about alternative 2. So I understand, and we're talking about how you get to the annual capacity value. What we're talking about can lead to that same question. How do you get to the annual capacity value? I guess the part that is confusing to us is why we ended up dividing by the load profiles usage in the 460 hours, when in my mind that doesn't seem to have anything to do with what we're...
They were told to. The commission
No,
order...
I've
yeah,
read the
I'll
order, yeah.
explain. The commission order was very specific on that because we basically took the perspective that it should be what could be avoided if we designed TOU rates for those 460 hours for the retail class. Remember, what we were trying to give to intermittent technologies was something that was more stable, like retail class was getting, rather than alternative 3, which was our first choice. So what we said was, okay, we want people to choose something that's more time oriented but still stable. So we said take the costs that you would have used for the service class over the 8760 hours and put those costs in those 460 hours and then divide them by the KWH for those customers, just as if you were designing, okay, for this service class, how would I collect these costs if I did it differently in those 460 hours? Then that gave a service class specific incentive to the DG developers to choose that. If we had just picked a bucket of dollars that was the same, just spread over different hours for a PV curve, then nobody would have adopted the 460. They would have all probably stayed with the 8760 or whatever.
So I think maybe I didn't speak clearly. I definitely get all of that.
Got all that?
Yeah, I
I'm
understand.
sorry.
I understand that. I mean, I think the part is, so we definitely understand paying in the 460 hours. We understand alternative 2 is intended to be an additional. If you want to take that risk, you get some reward for that, trying to line up more with peak coincidence. The part that is confusing is you're basically taking annual capacity value divided by just summer production for this one customer class, who basically what it does is decrease the value versus if you went like say a monthly average. You took the monthly, capacity cost, divided that by that service classification's monthly, peak demand or usage. When you add that all up and divide by the summer, it ends up to be a lower value, and we couldn't understand exactly why. Why that was logical.
It was just based on the logic of if we did a TOU method rather than the even worse method that we currently have for this service class for collecting capacity costs. So you allocate those capacity costs to that customer class based on its forecasted peak contribution to that 1 hour. All right, so you got the bucket of money.
So you're saying you approach all this from the cost allocation perspective,
From the
as
retail
opposed to
compensation side, and saying for intermittent, what we're giving you is what we said we were going to give was this avoided retail rate. So the 460 was designed as an avoided retail rate if we squashed it into those 460 hours. Plain and simple. It wasn't meant to be a hybrid of two things or...
So if my service class was going to cost, pick a number, $1 million of ICAP costs in a given month, and doing over the year, doing the division, by however many kilowatt hours over the year, I come up with 3 cents. Roughly what we're saying is a tenth of their usage is falling into the summer 460 hours. So instead of spreading that $1 million over, 10 times as much kilowatt hours and coming up with 3 cents, I'm spreading it over a tenth of it and coming up with 30 cents.
I
which is for
understand
that service class a revenue neutral rate design of my $1 million of capacity cost. It will then presumably create a slight differential for a given solar, or certainly for a solar paired with storage, to say, let me, polish up and perform well because I get more of that 30-cent value in those summer.
Well, and that's what I'm here to try to communicate, is that compared to what we had understood as more like what we kind of thought as a more logical approach from a capacity allocation to a generator perspective, like this method, which sounds like it's more of a cost allocation kind of thinking through, provides less value. And so for incentivizing folks to use method 2, I think it's a third to half less value last time we ran the numbers. So it was significant.
Wait, let me guess. Yeah. Less value than if you took the alternative 1?
No. Less value than if alternative 2, we were thinking more like you have a monthly capacity cost, right? You take it and you spread it across your customer class profile for that month so that you properly weight it. And then you average all of those values across the year, total them and weighted average them. That value comes out to be higher. That had seemed, what we had assumed would be the methodology. This seems more about why divide by the hours in the customer service class usage hours in the 460 seems more about trying to think about it. You just keep saying a time of use rate, Warren, which is helpful, but the cost allocation perspective.
Melissa, you should run the solar numbers times those two different ones, and I believe there's a small differential favoring solar production
between
for
which two
alternate
ones,
2 versus alternate 1.
Yeah,
it may not have been as big a differential as you were hoping for, but I think we're following what the order told us.
Well, that's what I'm just asking these questions about. Is yes, I still think it provides a small incentive.
You were hoping for a bigger differential. It's not as big a differential. I think the differential's still there.
Yeah,
so
it depends
I question
on what you
why
start
you're
off
saying
with. If you had started off with alternative 3, which is arguably the at least pecuniary benefit you get from load modification, which is probably the lowest of all of these. So what we said was, okay, we took the step to, why don't we give you the retail rate that you would have gotten under NEM for a given service class, which service class, okay, go and figure out which service class. And then that also kept it kind of revenue neutral with respect to the MTC, since we had it above and below the line, if you know what I mean. So this doesn't distort that. And then we said, what could we do to make it a little bit more incenting of still keep the stability from the retail rate, but make it a more time-sensitive retail rate approach. And so that's a little different than the concept that you're putting forward, which is start with the retail rate, but then make it more sensible.
No, I must not be communicating clearly. I totally understand that we have method 3 as the bounding, which, there was trouble doing now in phase 1.
Right.
And then we moved to method 1, which provides a lot of stability. It's great to hear that all of the capacity costs is in the supply cost. It makes it simple and easy. Wonderful. And then we had option 2, which is supposed to be providing a little more time, directing you to perform in a certain period of time. And I get all that. We were just trying to understand the logic behind dividing by the customer class profile generation usage as opposed to some other approach in those peak hours. And it sounds like what I'm hearing is it has to do with how we go and collect these costs from our ratepayers. That's what we're lining it up with the load profile expected usage in those 460 hours. Is that correct?
It started with what alternative 1 was and said, well, what if our retail rates were a little better?
Okay. And then I guess just on that first point, is it possible that we could have the correlation or the peak kilowatt hour models that you guys did to determine the service class? Could we have those shared?
I think so.
I mean, it seems like you did good work. It'd be really helpful, just kind of data point to be able to see them.
I'm leaving it up to the lawyers and
I mean, if that's something the utilities are able to file in the docket with a letter, that would certainly be great. Certainly no objection from our side.
So Snoo is still here. I'll hang him out to dry and say his communication to us was he liked what Orange and Rockland and Con Ed did better than what the others did, for what it's worth. Like I said, what Snoo says isn't necessarily staff position, but he's the closest thing we've got to an honest broker here.
No, I think
Including myself.
we really appreciate how everyone went and looked at that model, that approach too, and that was really helpful kind of bookend. So if we just had a little more detail on those in the record, so we could take a look at it, that would just be wonderful and helpful. So
Yeah, I'm just hoping they meet the timing you need for the comment.
So I think one of the questions is if we have the individual class demand data, we don't usually put that out publicly without NDAs. We could certainly have a summary of some of the calcs, which I think for us is pretty straightforward in the table. You know, what's the peak, what's the annual KWH, you know, but I think, and I'm not sure if other utilities have that same concern, there's a level of detail that typically we won't provide in a public forum. We would want to have NDAs and therefore could not post to DMM in the way you're asking.
okay, we can finish it offline. Thank you very much.
Just do it quick. Mike Conley from Borrego. So for the first year of capacity compensation, you're using an indicative model for PV. What are we going to do for solar plus storage?
I think that's a good track 1A issue.
No plan yet?
We certainly could handle it with separate meters and do it very cleanly, but I don't have a thought offhand for the interim piece until you get up and running.
Okay. All right. My second question. Is probably, it may not specifically be for NYSEG, but it's best illustrated by NYSEG, and it's just regarding how you allocate the capacity component of the supply charge over your entire service territory when your service territory spans several NYSO load zones, specifically when those load zones have a pretty big spread in the capacity number. So best illustrated between, like, you guys have a small slice of territory down in G and J, which has a much higher ICAP cost than the rest of the state. But there doesn't seem to be sort of like any distinction between the supply charge of the capacity portion of the supply charge for just any customer who's on the SC2 rate. Is that true? Is it just get washed out?
No, there is. We have separate supply prices. We actually have 3 supply zones across our system that not totally lined up with ISO. We have what we call NYSEG West, NYSEG East, and then when G to J was formed, Lower Hudson Valley price zone was made. We have, I think it's less than 10% of our load is in G to J. Everything that I put together here just use rest of state prices. I would say that the argument could be made that we should incorporate that load zone into the prices and bring up by 10%, but I don't think that I wouldn't say that a project in G to J would get G to J price, because it's more a factor of the capacity costs that are being avoided for the supply customers.
But if you're a generator in G and J, you could get the G and J capacity cost by opting into alternative 3 if you had a dispatchable component to the job. Is that right?
And any resource can opt into alternate 3, whether it's mandatory for dispatchable.
Right.
So I think the order, Ted, correct me if I'm wrong, said to pick a service class and to use it. I'd say if you have an issue with this, brief it. And let us sort it out on whether the order foreclosed it or not, because I don't know that it did. So brief it. When in doubt, brief it.
I don't know how to brief something, but I will ask around. Figure it out.
I'm sorry, write it in your comments.
Warren uses the word brief, or I would use the word comments, so comment on it is...
So can I go back to your question? I think
urban slang fancy somebody.
Yeah, right.
If I can take your previous question of how do we treat battery plus storage, I said we need to figure that out. That was really thinking of the earlier pre-lunch discussion of the LSRV, DRV, how do we figure out that interim coincidence? For ICAP, for Alt1 or Alt2, we will clearly use the volumetric Alt1, I'll use my 3-cent example, Alt2, my 30-cent example. That we're not locking those in for 20 years. That's a rough proxy of the spread of the two, but it's whatever we published in our May 15th filings, right?
Right. So my question was, what's the proxy load profile that you use for year one?
So we don't have a proxy load profile for generation capacity under Alt1, Alt2. We use the service class, in Con Ed's case, the SC9 service class, and said, what is my capacity cost spread out over those kilowatt hours? That's my 3 cent for the main number that I published. Yeah. What would it be if I took my annual kilowatt hours and spread it over the SC9 service class only in their 460 hours, which is my roughly 30-cent number? Forgive me, these are illustrative. And so it had no impact on whether it was a PV in a shady spot or a PV in a nice sunny spot or one with trackers or one paired with solar. Whatever you inject into the grid is what I compensate you for. Mm-hmm. Net injections. I don't, as long as it's a net metering technology, you can shine a flashlight on those panels to try to goose up the power, right? I don't think that's cost effective, but it's whatever your production is, that's what we'll credit you for.
Right. So Alt1 and Alt2 are kind of following the mechanism of net metering in that it's calculating a proxy retail rate that you avoid as you go along, which is different from DRV, LSRV, which is picking your what you do in these 10 peak hours of the year and then figuring out what that value is.
But isn't that proxy retail rate calculated by using last year's performance? I'm losing the thread here on last year's performance and how it relates to
Alt2, this is what they would complain about before March 9th.
Alt2, but now we read the order and we're complying with it to the best of our ability. Alt2 is taking last year's capacity cost for that service class and spreading it the known costs and spreading it into the 460 hours. Whereas Alt1 takes each month's capacity costs, or in Con Ed and O&R's territory, each 6-month season of capacity costs, and spreads it into the expected sales for that service class. Has nothing to do with the net metering technology that is participating in that value stack creation.
Right. So under either Alt1 or Alt2, every project either in the whole service territory or in the relevant zone for service territories that have the separate zones, every project is getting the same per kilowatt hour value for every kilowatt hour they inject, either the whole year at the 3 cent hypothetical number or during the 460 hours for the 30 cent hypothetical number, regardless of whether they were there last year or not, and regardless of what their load curve was last year or this year. So that's why it's only Alt3 where it is based on your project specific performance last year that you're getting compensated, that the proxy curve matters.
Okay. Told you it'd be a quick question. Thank you.
The question was fine. It's the answer. All right. So it looks like we've exhausted ICAP, and let's move on to the MTCs.
So we have a substitution. So Bill's going to take over.
Okay. Let me just say.
he's looking to leave the table.
I'll come back if I'm not.
This isn't a total discussion of MTCs, which we covered ad nauseum in the case and in the April 5th and 6th tech conference. When the filings came in, the calculated MTCs came in looking very close to what was in the order, except for one, and that was Con Ed. And so what we thought we'd focus the presentation part anyway on is why Con Ed's differed so much. And then you're all welcome to ask clarifying question about MTCs. But the only presentation is going to be by Con Ed on why their MTC looked different from what was in the order.
Okay, so I'll explain why Con Edison excluded the monthly adjustment clause, or the MAC, from its base retail rate. And actually, yeah. If you want to just advance it, that's fine too. Okay.
What it really is it doesn't do anything. It just wakes up John.
Okay. little jolt. So first of all, the commission actually in the March 9th order was very specific in terms of how the MTC was calculated. And on this slide, you can see that we've laid out basically the elements of the MTC as they're described on pages 127 to 128 of the order. And the question is Con Edison's exclusion of the MAC in determining the base retail rate. So there's a list there of items that the Commission has specified for inclusion in the base retail rate. There's the current volumetric delivery rate per kilowatt hour. And if you read the order, it's very specific in that it's the tariff rates. So in other words, those are the pure delivery rates that are in the tariff for service classification 1, for instance, or 2, depending on which one we're working on. And then the other elements are fairly specific as well. The SBC, merchant function charge, and then capacity and commodity charges. So this list of items that comprises the base retail rate excludes the MAC. And then in addition, in the order, there's an appendix with a numerical example. That's Appendix A. And in its calculation of Con Edison's MTC, it's clear that the MAC is not included there as well. If we can move to the next slide. So Con Edison's position is that the MAC should not be included in the base retail rate calculation used to determine the MTC. Reason one is that the value of DER order was very specific in terms of laying out exactly how that base retail rate is calculated, and the MAC was not included there. And then we also believe that the Commission's decision to exclude the MAC was appropriate because of the elements within it. So the MAC includes recovery of a variety of items, but the main components of the MAC are stranded cost related, back from the days when the company divested its generating assets. And there are non-utility generator contracts that have expired during the 3-year period that's used to determine the base retail rates. So during that period, there's a very substantial sum of money in the MAC that will no longer exist going forward. Another similar item is costs associated with a PJM open access transmission tariff contract that we had and recovered during that period, 2014 through 2016. That has also been terminated and no longer exists. Then there are a couple of other items that are less substantial, but also illustrate the logic of excluding the MAC. Things like costs for the company's BQDM program that were rolled into base rates in the company's last rate case. So in other words, including them as the MAC in the base retail rate and then having them within the current delivery rates would result in a double count. And then another item for illustrative purposes is the standby performance and reliability credits that will at some point expire as other forms of compensation are available to CHP and standby customers. So it's the company's position that the company agrees with the Commission's exclusion of the MAC from the calculation of the base retail rate. First of all, because it's very specifically was excluded in the order, and we believe what we've done here is followed the order. And then second, just due to the costs in the MAC and the fact that substantial amounts of them have expired in the last 3 years. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
What is the delta? About a penny. Sorry.
Just for people on the phone, we had a question shouted from the audience of what difference does it make? What's the amount of the difference that it makes? And it makes about a penny worth of difference in the MTC.
Almost. Yeah, I mean, so Dennis from Enter Solar. So we are building CDG Yeah, it's on. So we're building CDG projects in New York City. So this does affect what we're doing, although The first ones are all phase one net metered. But if it's specifically called out in the order that it should be excluded, is that what you're saying? Is that true?
What's specifically called out in the order is what should be included. And there's a numeric example there, too, that if you look beneath the hood, you'll find that it's not in there.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're kind of splitting hairs here that if we look at retail rates over the last 3 years, they're going down, so we're going to take the hit there. We're trying to carve this out. I'm not saying that it's illogical what you're doing. I'm just saying that we're getting down to levels of granularity where maybe this doesn't, make sense. Just keep it simple, keep it consistent. It's,
So
I'd rather have the extra penny than lose it.
I hear. Can I ask clarification questions? I did step out. I'm sorry. So when you say if you look under the hood, it's not in there, then how did ours come out a cent higher? And embarrass me all you want. You just added 2 and 2 and got 5.
What I'm looking at, Warren, is Appendix A. So in Appendix A, there is a Con Edison delivery rate number there, 0.1016. That number is calculated based on a weighted average of summer and winter pure delivery tariff rates.
Yes.
Doesn't it also say they're estimates?
Wait, let's just find out why I got a 1 cent difference from this.
No, they're not estimates, they're actuals.
Yeah.
So your 1 cent difference, Warren, is in what category?
When you look at the MTC, our MTC here was 1 cent higher than the MTC you came in with, and I thought the difference was the exclusion of the MAC.
Actually, I think it's in the supply components.
The MSC?
Yeah.
We're going to have to take this offline.
I think we will.
I thought the answer was the MAC.
Okay. So we can have a conversation about that.
Watch your DMM.
Okay.
I'm back. Here to make trouble. Hi, this is Rick with SIA. Quick question on the service class that you're using for calculating the MTC. I think we heard that some utilities are now planning on using for capacity SC2 and SC3. And is that going to continue? Is that going to be sort of replace? Is that going to replace SC1 when determining MTC in the actual calculation?
No, what I was just talking about was the MTC is only applicable to the non-demand build classes, the mass market classes. So I had mentioned SC1 and 2.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I would expect SC1 to still be used to calculate the MTC, and I think the reason for that is it's intended to make compensation substantially equal in tranche 1 to NEM. So if
both
what?
We have 2 MTCs.
Well, that's true. The MTC for residential customers uses SC1, and the MTC for small commercial uses whatever that utility is applicable. Small commercial classes for some, I think it's SC2. For some, it's a subclass of SC1, etc. So, for example, using SC2 or SC3 for the capacity based on curve fit could result in lower or higher compensation as compared to net metering, where you're effectively getting capacity as part of the SC1 on an SC1 basis as part of the overall supply cost. So it makes sense to include that difference as part of what's being used in calculating the MTC.
So, no. I stopped listening halfway through that.
Okay, fair enough.
So, let me just make a couple of clarifications and then ask me your follow-up question. Okay. So, 1, each utility did and was to calculate an MTC for SC1 and an MTC for small commercial non-demand, which is usually SC2 ND, but NYSEG wanted to call it SC6, so that's what they are. All right, so there's 2 different MTCs for each utility, depending on which customer. The capacity element that was used in calculating the MTC was the same for the base retail rate and for the estimated value stack, so it just sort of subtracted out. Okay. So
that
what
will
he said-
continue to be the
no.
case, basically.
Yeah.
And
So-
depending on what the utilities use, that will inform what's used for the MTC calculation, right?
Well, the MTC calculation should be indifferent to what they used for the ICAP value if they use the same value above and below the line, because you get the MTC by subtracting. So you're just subtracting the same number from the other number.
Okay.
Now, if they did something different than that and I didn't catch it, that's a different story. But we're going to find out why I'm whether it's MSC or my MSC in Con Ed leads to 1 cent, and then we're going to put that on DMM.
Okay.
It may be followed by M. Warren's been fired.
Hannah Master John from Clean Energy Collective, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head, responding to that might make a fool of myself here, not being able to do math live, but but the value stack, you've got your base the MTC is calculated base retail rate minus value stack, right? So if the value stack is SC3, SC9, whatever the capacity portion of the value stack is based on, shouldn't that be the value stack that is subtracted from the base retail rate to calculate the MTC?
So, what you're going to get paid is the service class ICAP charge that we've been talking about here.
Right.
The calculation of the MTC came before that.
Yep.
And what I used for the SC1 ICAP and what I used for the value stack ICAP were the same.
Right.
So that would zero out and wouldn't affect the MTC.
Okay.
Okay. So now.
But that's when we thought that the value stack would use SC1 as the reference rate for capacity.
So I'm not sure you want to do anything different for calculating the MTC to get you back to SC1 or SC2. If you start having this differential, then
what's the differential?
If you use SC1's ICAP,
right,
and then the value stack ICAP that we're now going to select,
right,
now you're going to get a differential that could lower the MTC or raise the MTC depending.
Okay, so setting aside what the impact would be,
do
we agree it's more logical to base the value stack on what the value stack is?
So going forward, I guess you could recommend to do that.
Yeah.
I didn't think process-wise it was fair.
Yep.
I thought people should have a sense of what the MTC is going to be going forward as we go into August.
Right. Appreciate that. Certainty's good. I think we should consider it.
Okay. Brief it.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. So that's MTC. Lunch.
Again. We went to cost recovery.
Yeah, so this is cost allocation recovery of value stack elements. This is another one of those where there are a lot of weeds and a lot of details. The commission laid out the principles for cost allocation of the credits and recovery. And the principle was that the cost recovery followed the benefits from where the benefits of the injections would go. The one element that seemed to be worth presenting that I think some people have called about and scratched their head about was the recovery of the so-called out-of-market portion of E. And just to refresh, for the VDER tariff, the credit for the E value, the environmental value, is set at the latest NYSERDA Tier 1 REC procurement price, which is a procurement for generally a 20-year contract. Not always, but mostly. And it was set in the VDR tariff to be that value at the time. Now, I believe the order set at the time you interconnect.
Yes.
All right. and people are asked to brief and have been asked in the notices to brief on whether a different time, such as the time you lock in your tranche position, might be a better time to lock that in. We won't debate that here, just put it in your comments. But the locking it in for 25 years at the latest procurement value until the next procurement value comes along and then locking it at that level, the utilities have asserted, and they have a point, that that could be different than what they pay year to year for RECs, which is a single year price they're going to get from NYSERDA when they buy the RECs from NYSERDA. And so they've proposed a mechanism for collecting that differential between that 25-year locked-in price and what they actually pay year to year for RECs into their own. I think most of them just followed along the way MTCs were recovered for that overmarket and undermarket portion, but they can tell you about that. So that's what this specific presentation is about, and then you can ask questions about that, or if you have other questions about it, cost allocation recovery, feel free.
So I think Warren covered most of this first slide. That's just from the order and saying who these costs should be allocated to, who should be paying these costs. And the second bullet there, for compensation that does not reflect a value that has been identified and calculated at this time, recovery will come from customers within the same service class as the beneficiaries. And so that's where with the E value we're saying it's above what we would have paid otherwise. If you go on. So we set up a table, and in our filings, we all said more or less the same thing, and some said it better than others, and there was some confusion. So this table covers how we look to recover all the value stack costs. And I won't go through every part here, but you'll see generating capacity out of market, the E out of market, and the market transition credit. And those are the ones that those credits would come from specific service classes. And as Warren was talking about, with the environmental over or under market charge, just as Warren was saying, if we lock in a price and that price sits for 25 years, if we just took that as our price of RECs, then our supply customers would either pay that over or get the benefit of the under market price, and so that's why we're splitting that out, and we're going to look at the RECs as what their cost is for that given year, and use that as that's what our cost would have otherwise been, and anything above or below that gets passed to all customers in the specific service class of the makeup of the CDG projects. And I think that's it. So if anybody has any questions on that.
So would you agree that my sort of general logic of that is a good way to describe it, that the base amount, the amount that you pay, actually is allocated to all supply customers because they're getting the Tier 1 REC credit. But the overage or underage is kind of like either a plus or minus MTC, and that should go to this MTC classes, or does it go to the entire CDG class?
It would, it would go to all the subscribers because it's all of the subscribers, the makeup of that.
As Steve is about to say.
It would go to all the subscribers of the CDG.
Okay.
So it goes in proportion to the subscription classes. So if you had a project that was, let's say Recs were $20 and we locked in $24, that $4 benefit in the money, we would still charge our full service customers the market value at 24. We would have $4 cash left over times however many kilowatt hours, megawatt hours. If 80% of that is residential, 80% of that would go to RSC1 according to the percentage of subscribers.
Okay.
In the exact same way, we're proposing the other two categories that Brian mentioned, which are the gen out of market capacity as well as the MTC piece. So those three buckets we're proposing to allocate in proportion to, I hate to say the word beneficiary, the subscribers.
Well, the classes from which the subscribers come from.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Hi, Justin Fung, City, New York, and multiple interveners. This has nothing to do with the E-value, but these are just general cost allocation questions for all of you. I'd like to start with NYSEG, RG&E. In the VDR order for the DRV, LSRV cost component, the order says, I believe, that costs are supposed to be allocated to customers on a voltage basis, with lower voltage costs being collected from lower voltage customers and then higher voltage costs being collected from all customers.
Yep.
In your filing, you wrote that low voltage costs would be recovered from lower voltage customers, but higher voltage costs would be recovered from higher voltage customers. I just want a clarification whether that was just an oversight or whether you intend to actually deviate from the commission order.
No, if we misworded it there, we plan on following the order.
Okay.
That's what our wording should have said.
Okay, and then the other question was for Central Hudson and National Grid, because in your filings you had just said that it would be recovered on a voltage basis, and I just wanted to make sure that it's also going to follow the commission order in splitting between the voltages.
For Central Hudson, yes.
Okay.
For National Grid, yes.
Okay, and then the second question I had was for everyone here. It has to do with the capacity value cost allocation. I understand that the commission, they put down some commission put down some general guidelines on beneficiaries' pay principles, and I believe that in each utility's case, they propose to recover the capacity component from all delivery customers. And I just want to get the rationale behind that because arguably, as to certain LSEs, a reduction in their capacity procurement obligation, that only benefits the commodity customers.
But this is so if you have DER running at the time of the NICA peak,
right,
then everyone's capacity obligation has gone down
across the board.
Right. So that's why it makes sense to allocate it to all delivery customers, because every delivery customer has had their obligation reduced.
Okay.
So unlike the energy that we're going to get from these projects, where we believe we can come up with a mechanism to, for want of a better word, bilaterally assign it or reduce our full service load obligation, the ICAP piece is really it's not a true capacity product that we could sell to the New York ISO. It's really a reduction to the service territory load obligation, which means all LSCs within that service territory the following year will see a lower peak load that they'll all collectively have to get to. And so everybody, and it really goes to, since everybody will see that benefit, the market value of that benefit is what we want to assign to all LSEs, but we don't bill LSEs, so we're going to assign it to all customers of LSEs in a demand charge-like mechanism because ICAP is a demand charge-like concept.
Okay, and just one clarification for RG&E and NYSEG, our MHP customers are excluded, and we put that in our filing because we use just their usage in that hour of the system peak to determine their peak, and they don't have unaccounted for energy applied to them. So it's a little carve out that we have. There.
Okay. And then one last question. This is for Con Ed. I believe that Con Ed is going to pass through some of the value stack charges to NYPA customers through the OTH. I just want to know if that surcharge is going to be just one value across the board for all NYPA customers, or whether Con Ed differentiates between high tension, low tension customers. And if not, I'd like some clarification on why.
When we charge anything through the NYPA OTH statement to NYPA, it's a single dollar amount. NYPA is our customer in total, regardless of the variety of customers that they have that they're providing service to.
But in coming up with that OTH value, is there any sub differentiation between high tension and low tension customers in order to reach that?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
So NYPA has a mix of high and low tension customers.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, making up time. So that was cost allocation. Oh boy. So this is an issue, topic number 6, calculation and allocation of credits for CDG projects. This is a topic that came up during the April 5th and 6th technical conference. We had some discussion about it then. Based on that discussion, I put together a very simple example, and it went into DMM on April 14th. It's been there for a couple months. Some people have called me up about it and talked about it. I was just going to run through it very quickly. Because people have had it for a long time, it was to give people something to cite to that's specific in their comments if they wanted to choose. It's just 2 alternative methods. But John, if you could bring it up, I'll just walk through it very quickly. And if people want to ask questions, they can. No? This is the 4-page one with the really stunning clip art work.
The title of the first slide says "Calculating Bill Credits for."
You were giving me a hard time about colors.
But these are good colors.
Not all oranges.
Warren, I've even borrowed your clip art.
Have you?
I changed the numbers.
You're lucky I work for the government. All right. So if you could go to the next page, please. All right. So this is all in the public domain. Microsoft assures me, so don't worry about that. So I set up a really simple CDG example. I said, all right, you have residential customers. They're the ones in the cute Victorian houses. You have one demand metered customer, therefore would not get an MTC. And then you had what we've been calling the machine with its own hourly meter on it. And I just very generally said the MTC for the residential customers would be 3 cents a kilowatt hour. All the value stack elements would be 6 cents a kilowatt hour. The output, all round numbers, 10,000 kilowatt hours. And I came up for some reason with a DRV value of $37 a month. All right, for this customer. So then if you go to the next page, to summarize the way the two different methods would work, as I understood them, was first, both methods start with the CDG project just providing the percent share that each member, each customer has as a member of that project. So that's all in column 2. My residential customers are customers A through G, and with their various shares of the project. And then the demand metered customer that gets a DRV but that does not get an MTC is 30% of the project. Then the next step is that you have to calculate what's the value of the machine given this makeup. So in alternative 1, I just took the KWH of the project, multiplied it by the percent share. That's what shows up in column 3. I applied what total MTC dollars it would get at 3 cents a kilowatt hour. I applied the value stack elements for the kilowatt hours that have been shared out to those members. Came up with a total, summed that up, and came up with a total of $847 for that project in that month. So alternative 1, you'd be done. That's how you calculate what each member gets as a credit for that production in that month. Now, as I understood the utilities proposal, alternative 2, you would take that $847 and then turn it around and multiply it by the percent shares in column 2. And they can tell me if I've got this wrong, but that's how I operationalized it, which came up with a slightly different number for each customer that still adds up to the $847. So that was my very simple example. Now, to show how these two alternatives change, as we know, the CDG member mix can change over time. And so I complicated it a little bit on the next page. I added some clip art. And 2 of the residential customers got replaced by 2 small commercial customers with a different MTC. So instead of the 3 cent per kilowatt hour MTC, they're going to get the 2 cent per kilowatt hour MTC, and I kept everything else constant. So I just swapped out 2 customers. If you go to the next slide, John. So customers F and G are now small commercial with a smaller per kilowatt hour MTC. The total percentages to these small customers stayed at 70%, but F and G now have different percentages, but customers A through E, those residential customers that were there in the beginning, still have the same percentage share. If you follow through the same approach, alternative 1 will give customer A the same compensation. Alternative 1 will give customer B the same compensation. Of course, F and G are a little different because the MTC changed, and the total value changes because it's a smaller MTC for those 2 customers. The utility method, it turns out, will change somewhat the value that each customer gets, even if it's still that customer, residential customer A, and the total production from the machine is the same and the total value stack is the same, simply because the mix of MTC customers changed. So to me, that was one of the key differences between the 2 alternatives. And I don't think I need to say a whole lot more on the calculation. You can walk through it. Utilities can say if I got their alternative 2 right. I'll just tell you, staff is leaning towards alternative 1 for a number of reasons, but that's one of the main reasons. And I'll let it go at that.
So I think you described it well, Warren. Our only observation is alternative 1 really requires us to calculate 3 separate buckets of compensation for each project and then do conceivably 3 separate allocations out.
It just is more work of something new that our customer ops people are, figuring out as we go down this process. So it's not impossible, but it's just an extra round of iterations. We did hear comments from some developers that, wanted to have sort of the flexibility to allocate benefits as they saw fit, and the expectation was that they could work out bilaterally with their subscribers what the appropriate fee structures would be, but we understand why, some people might have a preference for one option or the other. The sooner the Commission clarifies one or the other, the better it is for actually building the system that we need to have operationally sometime this fall.
But am I right that in order for you to do alternative 2, you still have to calculate column 7 first?
We do, but a lot of those values are done at the project level, not at the customer level. That's, while I agree with your math, we are not disaggregating it at the customer level. We are looking at the net injections at the project level. So the only thing we're doing is once a month we would look, or on the project's billing cycle, we would look at what is their allocation and say 80% of their production is eligible for a SC1 MTC based on their customer allocation. So I can effectively do it at the project level. I'm not doing my calcs at the individual subscriber level, because picture this, if you had 1,000 subscribers, it would make the math rather challenging. We're really looking to do project level calcs and allocate it out. Alt B would, alternate 1 in your case, would have us do 3 sets of project level calcs and allocate it to 3 buckets of customers, as opposed to where we thought we were going is to do 1 set of project level calculations and then allocate it to the subscribers. And it's not impossible, but it's just 3 different buckets instead of 1 bucket.
And the carryover falls into that same complexity. So if you have it 95% filled, so somebody left, it's now dollars that were calculated for one of those 3 sub-buckets. Do they have to fill that sub-bucket for the allocation, or can anybody come in and fill that amount? And then it changes that mix.
Well, give me. So say it's 80%. There's the possibility that it won't be fully subscribed to start. So say it's 80% subscribed. Under alternative 2, what do you do with the 20% credit that stays with the machine and rolls over for 2 years?
So alternative 2, it's a bucket of dollars. So whatever customers it gets allocated to. I guess
well, if it's not allocated to a customer yet, you don't know if it has a DRV or an MTC. So we've got to make a decision what to do.
Yeah. I think we need to work through some rules on that, and that's a very good question. I was assuming we would just normalize whatever cheat sheet the developer gave us to 100%. So even if it wasn't fully allocated, we would just presume everything was proportional to what they had subscriptions for.
So they would never have carryover?
I'm open to other ideas.
I understand that.
The carryover would be, so we calculate the rate based on 80%. So that's the 100% level. And then just calculate the rates there, and then the dollars that are left are the carryover. So there would be carryover.
Okay. And we still have the question of under all of these, what the carryover amounts to, given that it's not designated to a customer.
Right.
Nope, now it is. Thank you. Hannah Masterjohn, Clean Energy Collective. So I think, Steve, I will completely agree with you. If every kilowatt hour had the same value, that would be easier for everybody. So one option would be go back and accomplish that by applying the MTC to all customers. We'll have a real easy fix. But I think, we're all, I think, trying to operate under this paradigm from the March 9th order of the value of the kilowatt hour depends on who it's going to. And that does add a layer of complication. I think, though, that is the logic the commission went with. And so now to come back on the other side and say, well, it's too complicated to really implement it that way and see that through to the customer, I don't think that works. I think we have to do that now, and we have to go with the alternative one, kind of given that framework. I think, I don't know if anybody up here thought through kind of the issue of if you have a change in subscriber mix, which you will have a lot of, especially in the beginning of a project, because a lot of the projects will come on not fully subscribed, and then they'll get subscribed. Within the first 24 months, they'll get more, fully subscribed. You're going to have a lot of that change in the subscriber composition, and you'll always have some through the life of the project as some customers swap in and out. And with alternative 2, any time that subscriber mix would change, existing subscribers' credit values could change. And that's just so difficult for us to manage in terms of what we're telling the customer they're purchasing and how we're managing it.
So it's just an observation. Some of the credits are going to change monthly anyway. Energy values will change, presumably hourly, but certainly on the monthly statement. ICAP prices will be monthly or seasonal. The annual coincidence for DRV, for LSRV will change. So, we're happy to go either way. I think we could operationally go either way. Just making the observation, one is a little more work on our part than the other, and the sooner it's clarified, the better.
I completely agree with you on that.
Hey, Hannah, does it help if I say everybody is getting an MTC, just some of them it equals 0? It's kind of like God responds to everyone's prayers, but sometimes he says no, or she.
Doesn't help. Yeah, all right. Well, I think, I'm glad, Warren, you raised the issue of the unsubscribed energy. I think that's something that, maybe hasn't been really fleshed out to date, but it's going to be really important given we have this 2-year period to allocate credits. We are going to have, I think, especially as projects come online under phase 1, significant amounts of unsubscribed energy at first. It will get subscribed, but at first. And so I agree it's gonna be a headache from your perspective to sort of bank those credits at the 3 potential different values they could have, right? And then ultimately apply them based on who they ultimately end up being assigned to. That is a lot of
So think about the possibility that before we know, for the months where you do not have them subscribe to a customer, we'll know everything but the MTC, right? Even a DRV value. Mm-hmm. Banking the value stack, including the DRV, is the best we can do. I don't know if that's the best we can do, but think about that possibility in your comments. So the 6 months you go with only 80% subscribed, the 20% gets the value stack, including the DRV, for the value that the machine has built up that it has to then disperse over the next 2 years.
So, Warren, just a quick question. When does the DRV change in relation to what the MTCs are paid to the subscribers? Because the DRV gets prorated down for the portion of the project that the MTC is paid for. So we're coming up with a flat dollar value.
So what I'm saying is, going forward, you know what the customer is. And maybe I'm thinking this through too quickly in real time, so tell me if I got it wrong. So going forward, so the first 6 months of the year, there's 20% that you're just building up a bank account of credits that the developer then will disperse later. Going in July, it's fully subscribed, and you know that 20% is now made up of residential customers that gets an MTC. I wouldn't put an MTC on the January through June. I would have just had the DRV there, since that's our value stack value, and then it's just a dollar number sitting in, as I call it, a credit account that the machine, the project, whatever, can disperse. Tell me what's right and what's wrong with that as one possibility as you go into commenting.
Hey, it's Melissa Kemp with Cypress. I just wanted to second like the concerns that CEC was just raising. I mean, when I was hearing, it's really interesting discussion and point about how the billing allocations would be done. In my mind, when I heard the presentation, first option is you get your percent of kilowatt hours if you're a subscriber. Your second option is you get a percentage of total cost, so total value of the project. Right? It's really that simple. And I think, we'll think through it some more, but I think, being able to sell a share of kilowatt hours and there already are lots of variables, absolutely right. There are things that will change, but one less thing to have to change, meaning if my subscriber mix changes, I have one more variable to deal with. I think that would be very helpful. So I think method one likely would be a lot easier for us to work with.
I've heard that from many developers, that selling the percentage of the kilowatt hours is the easiest way to market and explain.
Thanks.
So Dennis from Enter Solar. I'm as much concerned about you guys being able to produce a tool that provides an auditable path as I am with if we went back to where are we going eventually? Are we going to a production tariff where the value is the value and regardless of the off-taker? Then skipping that step of having to build this much more complex tool. And in the end, it's all going to be smart spreadsheets anyway. But I mean, at this point, can we get there? Or is it like a monumental task to just do this to have it moving? And I agree with you, everything's moving anyway.
Well, Warren built it. No, I'm saying it's a spreadsheet that can be built by a developer, and I think you have the inputs going in. I think if you're talking about the verification of the numbers or just being able to make sure that it's calculating correctly, I think it should be relatively easily audited.
See, okay, just adding complexity to it.
All right, moving along. I lost my agenda. What's the next topic? Yes. So we're not quite fully transparent yet on the value stack. And obviously, we've got a lot of work to do before we go live with the value stack this fall. And the last topic here was just an opportunity for the utilities to try to tell us procedurally how you plan on what general things in the value stack are going to be in tariff leaves, what things are going to be in, and by tariff leaves I include riders, etc. What kind of things have to be in monthly statements, and obviously there has to be other, because there's day ahead hourly LBMPs as well, and there are elements that gross those up. Steve walked through just one very simple one, which is high cap, but there's losses and distinctions by voltage level that may just be held back at the project level. I don't know, but my goal is that, yes, you're going to have to file certain things in the tariff, certain things in monthly statements, certain things other ways, or not filed at all but presented. But ultimately, as you all know, I'd like to see all of these things per utility presented also somewhere on your web page as the VDR value stack that currently exists. Some things won't change from month to month. Some things will change every day. Some things will be there for until you change loss levels in tariffs or change something in tariffs. So please tell us the best you know as of this point in time.
So Warren stole my whole speech, so I think we can all go home. But so I'll give a general thought of what the joint utilities have been discussing, what are some of our thoughts are. So the location of the value stack components, and it's kind of in multiple ways we're looking at it. So we have basically a first part is our official notifications with the commission of what these values will be, and that's where the location of value stack components are under development, as we've been discussing, and will be in either in a utilities tariff, in a tariff statement, or in a combination of both. And we're continuing to work with staff to be consistent as possible. But I'll give one such example where consistency might not happen. For example, Con Edison compared to O&R is one I could talk about well. The market supply charge, for example, O&R has a market supply charge statement where we have values listed, versus Con Edison uses a calculator. So something we might consider on an MSC statement is a statement that wouldn't exist in a Con Edison area where they'd have to go somewhere else. And the case in point there is capacity, where they have an existing capacity statement, whereas O&R might be better served to have on our MSC statement combined together. So we're looking at all the pieces overall of where they will officially be filed with ETS. You've seen some draft tariff language is going to our next point. The May 1st filings from the utilities included either sample tariff leaves or draft tariff language on the Phase 1 value stack crediting. So we're considering consistency of language where we can to be as close as possible. There's differences in tariff structures that will dictate where the value stack language is included in each utilities tariff. That's just for the existing tariff language now is what we're looking at. Some people have it in riders, some have it in general information sections. But the point is, similar to what we did back earlier this year for April filings, we'll try to keep the key points consistent across the state, because I think that serves everybody's purposes. In addition, what you will be seeing for filings going forward is, as we've talked about, we'll have cost recovery for these value stack components that we're giving credits for. A number of our mechanisms will have to be amended to include tariff language on when we charge other customers these values, the reconciliation period, things of that nature. So that's an additional piece that hasn't really been seen yet, where we talked about it more theoretically of where it will be in terms of what mechanisms we'll include it from. This tariff filing will just put that language in the tariff filing, in the tariff itself. Now, we do understand the point that, yes, we are talking about different areas, and to Warren's point, each utility is also working to establish that central posting site in a similar format across the JUs, which will basically be value stack, here are all your pieces, so that a developer or somebody working with a developer or even a customer can say, hey, I want to see all my values. I don't want to have to go to the tariff or a statement here or there. So we're really, we're working to look at how we can get a consolidated look and feel, and where it's basically one-stop shopping for checking and things of that nature. This is basically where we are now. It's a lot of talk amongst the utilities when we have to come up with this consistent shared vision. We have to get internal approval and then talk about it amongst ourselves, and we are working on it, and we are trying to keep staff involved along the process, and really it is just we're moving along and trying to take comments and see how we're developing, and that's basically where we are now with the tariffs. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I agree. So we did pretty well time-wise. I just misestimated what we would be spending our time on. So good luck in writing your comments. I know that Rick mentioned that he's got some IRs in. And as I said, look to DMM for Con Ed and me to sort out where that 1 cent came from and how it does or does not relate to the exclusion of the MAC. So thanks for coming, and make those comments as clear as possible.